There we go. Hello, everyone. It's been quite some time since I streamed. It's been a very long and busy one. oh, oh man. Well, let me stretch a little bit. Oh, oh, man. It took me, man. I couldn't even remember how everything works. I couldn't remember how I had things set up. But it looks like everything's working, I think, for the most part. Looks like it. Well, cool. Well, it's good to be back. It's just been a really long... man, dude, I don't remember last time I streamed. It probably, like, toward the end of summer. Link Fronter, man, how are you? Oh man, it was yeah, just work got really busy. I kind of got at my job. I kind of got bumped up a little bit in my position, um, and so that meant a lot more work to do, a lot more responsibilities, which was good. It's been a very great learning experience. They gave me a lot of control over some stuff that I really wanted to have control over because, in my opinion, just wasn't going well. Made really big strides. I really appreciate them kind of like letting me take the project by the horns. In a short version, in my job we have a desktop version of software, and so I was doing UX design for that. It's been going on for a while, so I was kind of new. And there was another team that was doing like a mobile version of it, but they didn't have a designer, so they were just kind of just going through it. And so they reached out to me to help a little bit, on the side, and so I did, and I guess it went really well. And so then they just asked me, could you be in charge of that project? Could you be their designer? And I said, sure, yeah, I can do that. And so they had me between desktop and the mobile version, and I guess things were going really well, that they said, you know what, we want you to just be the lead over that project, over that mobile stuff. We don't even want you doing desktop stuff anymore. We want you to just do the mobile application. I was like, yeah, absolutely, sounds like a lot of fun. And so I was there, and then I guess we did really well. And so now they made me, currently I'm the lead designer of all mobile applications moving forward. Which, if you know from my YouTube channel, always calling me Blaze, I'm a self-taught UX designer. I have videos there, explaining like how I did it, very specific. I also have a step-by-step guide on how to do it. Doesn't cost anything. Yeah, it doesn't cost anything. It's just a matter of navigating the resources correctly, and then making sure that your portfolio reflects something that's good, which again, I talk about that too. But anyway, for me, I've been at this on this project for about a year and a half, and this is my first job. This is my first job as a UX designer, and so been at it for about a year and a half. Yeah, about a year and a half now. And it's going great, and it's just kind of crazy that I'd kind of be considered, good enough to be a lead designer for all mobile applications, which, I'm very, that makes me very happy. Obviously, it means I was doing something correctly. And so anyway, so we had the mobile app, and then so what that meant is I had to create a design system and a design kit for all mobile stuff, because they have one for the desktop version, but as you can imagine, desktop is very different from mobile, so a lot of stuff didn't fit, and they kept trying to tell us to make it fit, and it's like, that's not a thing. It's like you have to be willing to make some changes and modifications. And so I more or less volunteered to say, here, I'll do it. Okay, I'll do it, so we can make sure it gets done. I'd be happy to do it. And so they let me, and so that just took an insane amount of time. Meanwhile, working on the mobile application, but finally finished it, Friday actually. Couple little tweaks here and there, but finally finished it. And so that was like the bulk of my time was just building that thing. DJ Panda. Oh, hey, it's good to see you again. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, like I said, it's been awesome. It's been going really, really well. Um, yeah, I really don't even know like the words to describe it. It's just been going really, really well. I mean, to think that like 2 years ago, I was just like, man, I like my job, but I don't like my job. I you know, I got to figure out something, and fell in love with it. Couldn't afford college, and yet here I am. I'm doing pretty well. And actually now that's the other thing. I just started going for my bachelor's degree, um, in October, because I didn't have, as I've mentioned before, I didn't have the money to go to college. I couldn't afford it. So yeah, that's why I've been self-taught pretty much most of my life. And but now with this job, and financially, it was like, you know what, and then time wise too, talking to my boss and saying, what, I'm self-taught, but I'm always worried that, I don't know, that may not be appreciated somewhere else if I decide to go somewhere else. And so I just wanted to get my bachelor's degree to kind of like cement that a bit more. And so I started doing that. So I guess that also would explain why I've been really busy. But yeah, so it's enabled me to be able to start doing that, and that's going pretty well. It's been a really long time since I've been in a college. But yeah, just as I'm enjoying that quite a bit. But anyway, yeah, that's a long-winded way of saying it's been a long time. I've been gone for a while, just really busy, but it's all been good things. YouTube video wise, I just finished filming a YouTube video, the one about the resume stuff. So I'm working through. I got to start editing that footage and stuff like that. And I was editing. I kind of just get like hypnotized, and I get annoyed after editing footage because it can just be so tedious. And that's why. And but anyway, so the whole purpose of the stream today is there is a UX side project that I've been wanting to do for a really long time. And I finally was like, you know what, let's do it. I want to do it. I'm like super eager to do it. And so I figured, it'd be kind of cool to kind of share, I mean, I have to do it anyway. It's something that, I gotta do anyway. So I thought, why not stream while you do it? Why not? It helps me kind of like, I don't know, it just helps me work things out, because I'm essentially talking talking to myself while I'm doing it, and talking to you guys while I do it. And of course I can answer any questions anybody has. So, it's a nice balance. So I figured I'd do that. So essentially what I'm working on is, if you remember from my portfolio, one of my first personal projects was a mobile application for controlling an electric vehicle. I always thought the electric vehicle thing is really cool. The fact, having them run on actual computers, I'm like, oh man, that's just awesome, fantastic. I have a Tesla Model 3 that I bought like several years ago. I got it like used. And I mean, I didn't buy it for technology. I just bought it because I was sick of fixing my gasoline car, and out here it's not easy, fixing your cars. Like, I don't know, people look at you weird. And then, I just was like, oh, this is pretty cool technology too. And then just kind of but anyway, my first personal project was, a mobile app. And I always intended on, designing like the actual interface, because, the Tesla has like a couple buttons on the steering wheel. And then, but there's a screen that pretty much used to control everything, like climate and like music and stuff like that. Like, it's all done with a single screen, which of course, that's pretty, feedback, is really, it's really choppy, There's no doubt about it that people are used to buttons. Um, I've read many of the studies on it. And yeah, the study probably absolutely correct. That yes, people definitely perform better with buttons than they do with a touchscreen. But also when I was reading those studies, and of course I didn't go like super, super deep into it. But I also saw flaws in some of those studies, that I'm like, well, you can't say that this applies to all possibilities of all screens. It's like, well, just, you only tested one possible design. It just means that particular design was not good, but obviously people are used to buttons. And that's the UX, the principle of, I think it was like World Conventions, or I can't remember, one of the convention ones, where essentially like, do what people are used to, right? And so, like, absolutely, people are going to be better with buttons than they will be touchscreens, because that's what's been used for a very, very long time. But it also makes me think about what it was like when people... Scripture. Hey, promotion of year. Okay, well, thank you, Scripture. I'll think about it. But also makes me think about, what was it like going from the phones with the QWERTY keyboards onto iPhone touchscreens, right? In fact, my favorite phone of all time was a Palm Trio. It had like the full keyboard, right? Because I got really big fingers, so gonna love it, right? Absolutely right, Link. Yeah, and and so I never looked into it. It's something I want to do research on, but I imagine there was a major learning curve going from phones with buttons to phones with a touchscreen, right? But I mean, most people would argue nowadays that pretty much, for the majority of people, are very comfortable with touchscreens now. And in fact, they have a lot of improvements over ones with buttons, right? And so you keep that in mind too. That's like, well, at some point when things do change, there's always going to be trouble in the beginning, but sometimes the trouble is because of the learning curve, not necessarily that it's a bad concept. Anyway, I can't say one way or another, because I think we're in the midst of like this big change thing. But anyway, pretty much I came up with, I just want to ask myself the question, okay, well, if you had to, run a vehicle on a standalone display, with just one display, what would be one of the best ways to design it? What would be the best design, or at least one of the best designs, right? And I just thought, I'm like, that would be a really fun project to do. That would be super, super cool. I think that is like that'd be the coolest UX of all time. And that it's like living, breathing UX, right? Things are changing all the time, constantly. It's not like an app where it only changes as you press buttons, but this thing would be collecting feedback 24/7, and and I just think that's like the coolest thing ever, right? It's like it's living and breathing. And so anyway, I just decided to start working on that, right? So I thought I'd share some of my Fig Jam stuff and the planning I did. I have other notes that are like far more unorganized than this. I have like my note app on my phone and on my iPad are just like full of bunches of notes with like little things written down. But so pretty much I was like, all right, so how would I start this, how would I start this project? And of course, especially realizing that, okay, this is not just like an iPad, right? There's a lot more factors at play than when it comes to this, right? Because with an iPad and with a phone, it's mostly the question of like, okay, what are the touch zones? Because you're just using your thumbs, right? Well, this is different, right? I mean, you're driving a vehicle. So first off, there's a lot of other variabilities. For example, there is the height of the person, right? That's going to vary quite a bit. I'm 6'4", so I know very well what it's like to be in a vehicle that is too small for me. Very seldom is there a vehicle too big for me, but too small. It makes it much more difficult for me to do certain things, right? So there's the height of the person. There's also the arm length of a person, right? That's going to vary, right? And then there is also their distance, from the wheel, right? Of course, I can't remember what like the recommended like distance from the wheel is supposed to be. I think it's like I want to say 6 inches, but that sounds way too close. Like, I don't know, whatever the recommended is, right? But, for a tall guy like me, that's just not going to happen. All my height's in my legs. And so if I am like a foot away from the wheel, my knees are going to be up in my face. I'm not going to be able to drive, right? So tall guys got to be farther away. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law, for example, she is not the most confident driver. So she's always right up on the wheel, right? That means that things are going to be different for her, right? So you are going from worrying about, to considering like thumb size and finger size, right? To talking about, well, people may, to reach and visibility, like there's a whole lot of other factors, which makes me really excited. And then of course you have cognitive load, right? While, people are using your product and your UX at varying levels of cognitive overload, right? And so I have ideas for how to test that. We're definitely not going to test them while the person is driving because that would totally be illegal. But I have other methods that we're going to get to when we get to that point. It's probably going to be not till summer till I get to that point. All right. But anyway, the point is that's why it's so interesting to me, because there's so many more factors at play. And so I'm just really, really excited to dive into it. I think it'd be a very interesting way to apply, UX testing and UX design. So, the first thing I need to start with was like, what is the best practices? What would be best practices for this type of thing, right? For example, what are the ideal touch targets and touch zones? So of course on phones, we have, you have different touch zones, primarily use thumbs, right? So the touch zones are like, typically from the bottom up, right? And then more towards the center, right? Moving above that touch zone, you got to start using fingers, or the person has to really stretch, right? And then of course, touch target wise, I mean, there is, it's not that simple, but typically most people say somewhere between 40 and 44 pixels for something that's a primary function, 32, for secondary, 24 probably is the smallest that you really want to go, right? Like I said, it is not that simple. That's a pretty good thing. That's not that simple, but well, what are the touch targets on, this interface that is not sitting right up in front of you, that actually, is to your side, and parts of it are closer to you and parts of it are further from you, right? So what are the ideal touch targets? What are the touch zones, for that type of thing, right? And again, keeping in mind that there's varying heights, there's varying arm lengths, there's varying distances from the wheel. Well, like what is it for all of those, right? So, really, really exciting, to try to find out. So this is the step that I'm at right now is I was try to find out those things. So of course I had to grab grab some users for this, right? So first thing I did to bring up to speed, I sent out a survey. And so my users, the participants, so they are people that I know personally. And I did that because of, a couple things. First off, I don't have any money to hand out to anybody. And then second off, this type of testing is going to need to be like, this is not something I can do over Zoom. Like you got to get into, you're going to have to, they're going to have to get into my vehicle. Pretty much I have an external monitor touchscreen, and I kind of strap that to the display on my Tesla. So we're testing it inside of a vehicle, and they're adjusting stuff and blah, 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 blah. So it's good for them, right? So we're testing inside of a vehicle. This is not something that, they're messing with like right in front of them. Like I'm trying to make it, as close as I can, right? So send out a survey. Some of the things I ask, of course, get their first name, preferred method of contact, so I can contact them for testing. And of course, I guess for your teaching purposes here, so what kind of questions would I ask? Well, what is it? Again, it's a touchscreen inside of a vehicle, right? So, okay. So first off, I need to know how comfortable are they with touchscreen technology? Like how confident do they feel with that type of thing? Hold on, let me close my door. Oh, great. And then I just broke a bunch of stuff in my office. Hold on. Oh, that's great. Right. So, and by the way, on this survey, I messed up on a couple of questions. I don't know. I was supposed to make changes, and I guess I didn't. I sent out before I made changes. It wasn't anything like super groundbreaking. It was just kind of annoying for data collection. But so I need to find out, how comfortable are they with touchscreens in general, right? And then so that's just kind of like getting their attitude towards it, and then asking them, okay, well, how often do you use apps on a tablet in a day, right? So that's kind of getting their level of experience, right? I need to know, do they have experience with this sort of thing? Then I'm asking about, what kind of vehicle they drive. This is more for me to look at what kind of setup are they used to, in their vehicle, right? Seeing if there's patterns and things that I can see there, right? What kind of vehicle is it? Gasoline, electric, hybrid. Yeah, I probably wouldn't have asked that. But like I said, because they're people I know that they're willing to like roll with me on this. So, that's something that might, again, I'm also looking for patterns, right? And see, I can identify patterns. So the next thing I need to know, of course, is like, okay, well, how often do they drive their vehicle, right? Because this project is combining touchscreen technology with driving a vehicle. So I need to know how often they drive their vehicle. So, and I could split them. I split up between short trips and road trips, right? Because those two things can be very different, right? So first ask them about, short trips. How many trips do they take in their vehicle, a day, right? And I define it here, so there's no like question about it. What a short trip is. It's it's less than 100 miles, and it's to work, from work, to the store, from the store, right? I need to specify that because they might say work is one trip. It's like no, I mean like to and from is two trips. So I need to make sure they understand that. And then ask them, okay, when you take short trips, how often are you the driver versus the passenger, right? And for this, I wanted to combine, statements with, maybe giving them like a mathematical thing to it, right? If we can quantify it, it's always a good job if you can, because then it helps for like sorting later, right? So asking them, okay, how often do you drive? And then, well, how many trips are you involved in a day? And then how often are you the driver, right? Then I ask, okay, how often do you go on road trips a year? Okay, so, and then asking about that road trip, like, is it their primary vehicle they're using? Because I would prefer to know what vehicle they're using when they're on their road trips. And then, how often are you the driver versus the passenger? And this is also a very good question too, because you keep in mind this interface is not just for the driver, it's also going to be for the passenger. So I got to design not just for the person in the driver's seat, I got to design for the person in the passenger seat as well. So that's something that I need to keep in mind. So it's good for me to know. I don't want to just get like a whole bunch of drivers, in testing. I want to get some people that are passengers as well, so they can test the experience from that side. Primarily be focusing on the driver side of things. But and then passenger will be afterward. But I need to know that. And this is the one where I messed up. I said, how would you describe the interface of your vehicle right now? Like, what are they used to? This was so stupid. There are no buttons, no knobs. There's no screen. There are only buttons, no screen. There's a screen, no buttons. This right here. There's a screen with a lot of buttons. There's a screen with a few buttons. Like, come on. I meant to put like a number of like buttons. I even wrote it down. I did the research. I don't even remember what it is. I wrote it down in my notes, like what number to put there, and I didn't. I sent this out, which I guess it's really not that huge of a deal. Because I'm going to be doing user interviews with them after I go through after I'm done with this first testing thing. So I'm going to find out some information there. I'm really excited for that. That's going to be really cool. Right. So yeah, don't do this. Do not make this mistake. Like I said, it's not like groundbreaking, but yeah. But when you have your survey, give it to yourself, actually go through it yourself, or give it to somebody like a family member before you send it out. Yeah, anyway. And then if there's a screen, is it a touch screen, right? because obviously, the best people I'd want to talk to are people that use touchscreens in their vehicle. Obviously, it would be someone who has like pretty much a Tesla owner, I guess you could say. It would be them. But but other touchscreens are important too, right? Because that's some other touchscreen experience and stuff I'm going to draw from that, right? So that's the survey that I gave them, and I was able to get 13. Right now, I have 13 participants, on board, and especially too, I based it especially on first off on their height. So I categorized them as tall people, medium height, and then short, right? Because like we said, a lot of the varying factors are height, arm length, and then distance from the wheel, right? Those are all factors that need to be taken into consideration with these designs. And I also have a few theories about what a good vehicle interface design would be, how it would accommodate that. But again, I have some theories about it. But again, I got to wait for the data to come out to tell me if that's true or not, right? And so anyway, so I got 13 participants. I think I still have 3 that need to take the survey. Oops, just hit my mic here, which is perfectly fine, because it gives me a lot to work with. It gives me a ton to work with. In the meantime, but I'm gonna be picking them up. For example, I really wanted 3 tall people. I was able to grab an extra person, a couple days ago, and but yeah, I want to have at least 3 tall, at least 3 medium, at least 3 short, right? And that's why I try to overcompensate a little bit on my participants, because I know some are not going to be available, to help me out. But anyway, so they took the survey. I got their height. When they did the first test, I measured their arm as well. I kind of put this here. I don't even know if this is going to like really help me. More or less, I put this in here just to see if there's some type of pattern. I'm sure there must be some kind of pattern, but also too, it's to this kind of helps me make sure that I didn't like measure incorrectly or something like that. It's more like to check myself, right? And I'll say too, I usually do not have to put my participants in an Excel file. Usually it's just in a Figma file like this one. But there's just so much going on with this one. I went ahead and made a Sheets file for this. So, and I guess I could, share. So, I have checkboxes for everyone who completed the first survey, right? Wait a second. You did not complete it. Why are you marked if you did not complete it? See? And so I plug all of their responses in here, right? So I can kind of like keep track of that, and I can see it. I color code it, so it's a lot easier for me to see, what I'm looking for. So typically green means like, yes, that is, they have like high experience in that, and red means they have low experience in that. Green does not mean necessarily good. Red does not necessarily mean bad. It's just there to help me, it just helped me to, figure that stuff out. Just help me identify, easier. Let me see. So, and then these are the ones who did the first user test. And then here's some of the data that I collected. And so what I do is, based on these survey responses, I kind of label them a little bit, right? So that makes it even easier for me. So for example, this is an overview of it. And of course, I know their name at the beginning. Of course, I know they're all people that I know. So of course I know their actual names, but especially when I get into this part here, the synthesizing, well, that's where I need to be blind to who's who, because I don't want to be introducing my own bias into it, right? So I create a quick over. So here's what I know about user number 1 is they're in the tall category, right? When it comes to tablet, using a tablet in everyday life, you could consider them inexperienced, at least compared to the others. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but that just helps me know, right? When it comes to short trips, I have them categorized as a driver. So what this comes from is of their 2 responses on about driving short trips. Like how often do they, how often do they go on short trips, and then how often are they the driver, right? And it's the same thing for road trips, right? This, they're a, they're not a heavy short trip driver, but when it comes to road trips, they're a heavy driver, And of course, I'm very well aware road trips are not taken as often as short trips, right? But they're heavily the driver when it comes to road trips. As you can see, the huge majority of people take, short trips, right? Everyone's got their own car, but when it comes to road trips, this is nice, right? This person essentially never drives on road trips. This person kind of does half and half. This person, might help drive sometimes, but not all the time, right? So this is good, right? I have this nice and clear for me so that when I'm, synthesizing, all this data around, I can keep that in mind, that when this person, when user number 3 says something, as regards to it, I have to keep in mind they're a passenger. They're heavily a passenger when it comes to road trips, right? So I will keep that in mind, but also I'm like, well, this is really good insight to know, for, passenger side stuff. And then of course, console user stuff, I ask them, do they have a screen inside their vehicle? If they do, what kind of screen is it? Do you have a screen? Is it a touch screen, or is it just a regular screen, right? And this lets me know, I'm talking to someone who has a touch screen in their vehicle, and and they drive quite often, right? And we have one person who doesn't have a screen at all in their vehicle. It's just buttons, right? So that person's insight will be, of course, that's not like my ideal user, my ideal customer, I guess you could say, right? But his insight could be very helpful, essentially it'd be he's a good person to listen to, of, okay, well, how would I bring in somebody who's not used to having a screen in their vehicle? How could I bring them in more easily, into this, into using this product, right? So that's pretty much why using the mobile phone. Yeah. just gotta stick the mobile phone up there and just do it that way. Right. So yeah, so that's, like I said, very rare. I mean, it's very rare that I have to do something like this. But yeah, like when I'm getting, I got 13 participants now. I got to add this last person here. I start to need, and I'm also planning on possibly opening up to more. And so it's nice to have it in this format, so I can just, easily do that. And then there's a lot of data that I'm collecting, mathematical data that I'm collecting, right? Because I'm looking for a lot of patterns too. Like, when it comes to the screen, I'm looking for like does it matter what your height is? Does it matter how far you are from the wheel? Does it matter how long your arm is? I assume it does. Yeah, absolutely does, right? But one of the, what would be those factors that you need to especially look out for, right? I'm looking for patterns of any kind. And so that's why I'm keeping it very, very generalized. And this thing keeps saying that my YouTube stream is not working. Thank you. I don't know what's going on with YouTube, man. It just, yeah, now it says my YouTube stream health is good. I don't know. YouTube doesn't seem like it when I stream. Okay, so anyway. So now we can actually get into the actual work that I'm doing. So here's all my users in my FigJam file. Right, I got them all color-coded. Driven around a work car with only buttons, engine burnt out, ran out of coolant. Oof. Oh, that's rough. Oh man, yeah, that's rough. Yeah. Screens can be helpful. Screens can definitely be helpful. Yeah, and I'm just really impressed by the idea of the vehicle running on a computer, because of all the amounts of feedback that you can get, and like immediately. In fact, I remember the other day, I'm really bad at this. My Tesla started having some issues Like there's some functionality that wasn't working, but it was nice because like the screen, of course, was giving me a warning, and you just tap on it and essentially tells you like here's the problem with it, and like here's the issues that you might be experiencing, and here's what it can mean. And it was like, oh, you need to change the battery in the front. It's like, and I was thinking how long. I'm like, oh yeah, I've had it it's 5 years old. Yeah, I probably should have changed the battery like a year ago. And so but it was nice that it was able to tell me that nice and quickly, whereas like on my Toyota, I mean, it's it's pretty easy to it's kind of easy to figure it out in a gasoline car too. It's not like exactly rocket science, but you still have to go through a couple of little tests, to make sure it's the battery, because you don't want to buy a whole new battery and then you find out like, yeah, you didn't need a battery, it was something else completely. So it was kind of cool that I was able to get that feedback. But so here's all my users, right? I have them grouped and color coded by their height, right? Because that seems to, I'm guessing that's a really important thing. And then I have these little badges, these little symbols that identify like what kind of driver they are. Are they used to having touchscreens in their car and stuff like that? So I have those too, again, for my own, my own understanding, for when I start putting like all this stuff together. So I'll show you what the testing was like, or what I have. And in fact, I'm still testing. I still have more testing to do. So here is what I did for testing. Very, very simple test. Again, so you're remembering that a Ford Fiesta 6 with a touchscreen. See, there you go. See, that's progress. That's progress. My oh man, this is rough. My aunt and uncle, they came and visited me over the holiday. Oh man, I feel bad for them. English is not their first language. I feel terrible for them. So it was here that they bought it. They came to visit and they bought it. I don't even know how that worked. They went to they bought a Toyota, I think a Toyota Camry. Yeah, they bought a Toyota Camry. But it was an import from Korea. So I assume the price must have been good for that reason. I've never bought a vehicle that's like directly imported. Car doesn't like my Samsung. Yeah, see, that's the other yeah, I was never like much of a phone in my car kind of person. But now I've seen like how I use my old style S9 Plus. Yeah, I was never much of like a phone in my car kind of person, but now I like it quite a bit. I don't even listen to music anymore. I just listen to YouTube videos playing over the using the Bluetooth. I just listen. But yeah, my aunt and uncle same age the car. Oh god. Oh man, yeah. But yeah, my aunt and uncle, they bought a Toyota Camry imported from Korea. I guess it came from a dealership where they import them directly from Korea. And so they asked me, "Hey, could you take a look at this? Could you change the language inside the vehicle to Spanish or English, English or Spanish, whatever?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And so I go in there and I'm trying to do it, and I'm like, there are no, and I have a Toyota already, and you can change the language, but I go in there and I'm like, there is no, and I had to use Google Translate and use the camera to look at the words to translate them and see what they were. Yeah, to be honest, you want to keep in your old phone. Yeah, it's, in fact, I don't really buy new stuff. I keep using old stuff until it stops working, and then I consider getting something new. But anyway, I was trying to change the language on their vehicle, and it wasn't working, which is rough because like they have navigation and all sorts of stuff, but it's all in Korean. And so anyway, I did some research. It didn't take me long. I did a little bit of research. And they're like, oh yeah, there's no way to change that. There's no way to change it to any other language. Like it's in that language. Like they have to do a complete like put a whole new software in it, right? And oh man. And so yeah, I was pretty and I asked them like, what did the dealership tell you? They said, oh, they said that Toyota could do it for you. And I was like, I don't think they will, you know, but I decided I contacted a Toyota dealership out here, asked them, they said, and they more or less said, yeah, we'll get back to you, and they never did. So I'm pretty sure they can't do it. Yeah, but unfortunately my aunt and uncle left before, because I was like, dude, let's go back to the dealership and give this car back because they lied to you. Like Toyota can't do it. Yeah, but unfortunately, it looks like they're gonna be kind of stuck with it, right? Yeah, that's unfortunate, but yeah. So I guess sometimes screens are not good in vehicles. Well, that's something I assume. I understand. I don't understand, but I do understand. I assume there's some reason why, you know, it can't be switched to another language. You know, I assume it has something to do with, you know, the car being made in Korea. So I kind of understand. Okay. Oh man, dude. Like I said, it's not even like English versus Spanish where you can kind of like make stuff out. Like you can make some words out. There's nothing. Absolutely nothing. You can understand absolutely nothing. Even if you use Google Translate and use the camera function to switch things, even then it's like you're like, what is this? Oh, yeah, I feel really bad for them. And like I said, they live in a completely different state. And so I was like, man, I would have, because I told him like, let's go to the dealership and I'm going to talk to him and say, you lied to them. Toyota will not do it. You better take this car back. But yeah, my aunt got sick. I think it was, you know, it's just, you know, that flu or something. Oh God. Oh God. Yeah. I mean, I think the car is not super old either. So my thought is, I'm like, oh, you're going to have this car for a long time, like a long, long time. And so I do feel terrible for them, but yeah, the problem is it's been like, cause they only put like 30 miles on it. I was like, we could totally bring this back. But I'm like, nope, it's been like 2 weeks. They drove all the way back to their other state, which is like hundreds of miles. And I was like, yeah, there's no way you can give this back. So, I mean, what can you do, man? You know? Okay. So, to be honest with you, that was my favorite thing. At least I only know much about Teslas. My main thing that I like about Teslas is that the whole underside of it is sealed, which means no one can screw around with it. And whenever I'm buying a gas car, and I always buy used, I always buy used instead of new, because whenever you buy something new, as soon as you drive out the lot, you're upside down, which is terrible. But of course, anytime I buy a gas car, I'm like, I need to know, like, what have they done to this thing? You know, have they been changing the oil and doing all this stuff? And there's no way to prove it. There's no way to prove it until you have it for like another 500 miles, right? But with Teslas, I feel much better because I'm like, the whole underside is sealed. So I'm like, I know no one could be screwing around with this thing, at least, you know, electrically. And so I feel much better, you know. BMW i3, is that, I think my friend is looking at that one. Is that electric? Let me look that up. Because actually he was looking at an electric, and I think it was a BMW. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's not, yeah. Yeah, I think that's the one that he was looking at too. Yeah, but yeah, that's what I especially like, is that, you know, as long as the underside is sealed, you don't have to worry about people messing around with them. And so at that point, you just have to worry about cosmetics and anything they screwed around on the inside. But also, too, electric vehicles, again, especially with Tesla, like I said, you pop open the thing, you could see what kind of errors there have been. So you can see if they've been messing with anything. And so I feel much, much better about buying like a used electric vehicle than I do a gasoline vehicle, because takes out a lot of the mystery. So, but yeah, so pretty much the stage that I'm at right now is I'm trying to figure out, oh, this is it right here. Is this right here? I'm trying to figure out like what are the best practices for designing on a tablet like that right now. I found some article. I haven't found a lot, but I found some articles that I read on it. But the problem was that most of the articles I found, they were just pretty much like, well, Tesla does this, Google does this, they do this, right? And yeah, Android Auto, yeah. Yeah, that I heard about Android Auto, man. That's rough. That's pretty rough. That's really, really rough. But like, see, like the article I was reading, it was just telling you like what those companies did, right? And I was like, and I'm sure that user testing was done. Okay, I'm sure there was some user testing done. But I'm like, but I was like, I want to start from scratch. I instead of me trying to modify someone else's design, I was like, why don't I just start from scratch? And so the first thing I need to figure out was like, well, what should the touch target size be, and what would be the touch zones? Which is a tricky compound question, because it's kind of like a chicken and the egg thing. Not even a chicken and the egg. It's the opposite of a chicken and egg thing. Like, determine the touch zones. Well, it depends on the touch targets, and touch targets, well, it depends on the touch zones. So I had to put together a test that would kind of help me determine that. And so this is the test that I came up with. Really, really simple, as you can imagine. Everyone only took them like 10 minutes to test it, right? So if you can imagine, I have a touch screen, an external monitor touch screen, that's 15.6 inches, right? So close to the same size as the Tesla one. I just strapped it to, can I buy a box I can switch at? How would it cost? That's true. Yeah. Yeah, that is true. You still have that option. Yeah, to swap out the box. That's true. Yeah, so you're not you're not completely lost on that. Yeah. So I took this monitor, strapped it to the Tesla one, right, and then had them adjust their seat, right, how they like it. I measured their chest to the wheel, and then their arm length, right, and then had them take these tests, and I told them, okay, go ahead and just tap the buttons, right, and so when you tap it, it just turns to a blue one with a yellow star. In fact, maybe I should make my face even smaller here. Right, and once you tap it, like, you can't tap like anymore, right? So they just tap them all, right, until it's done. And so I had a camera facing the front of them, and I had a camera facing the screen, so I could see, all that. I can collect data from like all sorts of different places. And so I had them, and so in this first test here, the touch targets are 40 pixels, right, which is what you'd find on a phone. And then after they were done, it was like awesome. You can't see because my face is in the way, but I have was this 5 rows? I have 5 rows of 3, so 1 row here and the row here. So there's buttons like at all these different intervals, right? So the idea is, they tell me, we find out which are the hardest ones to get to. And so that would be considered like the hard zone. Which ones are easy to get to, that'd be like, that would be considered like, the good zone, I guess you could say, right? But then of course, there's 4 tests here. And the buttons get bigger and bigger on each test, right? And of course, you could probably guess which one they like the most. Save up for the car link. Yeah, it's them's the breaks when it comes to cars. I still have I just try to drive as little as humanly possible, so that I just keep the same car forever. But then I'm always like, but I never save up any money, and then when I need a car, I'm like, oh man, and I'm in a tough spot. But that's what I did, right? And so I'm hoping that that will give me at least some idea for what size buttons they liked, and then also give me an idea for where we could say the the touch zones would be. Which one, where are the zones where things are easy to get to and which ones are harder to get to. So I've done, let me see, how many tests have I done so far? 1, 2, 5. So I've done 5 tests so far, which is really fantastic. I don't know why Steam is still up. Skylines. And so yeah, I did 5. So I've done 5 people so far. I have more than I'm doing. I'm hoping to do 2 more this week, at least 2 more this week, right? And for the first one, see, I already kind of marked here which ones he said were easy to get to, which ones were, like which ones were hard, which ones were like okay, and which ones were easy, right? And so I marked them this way. And so I'm hoping that will kind of draw out for me like those touch zones, but also, again, looking at this, give me an idea for which size buttons are best. So I've already collected the things he said about these, but I haven't started collecting his statements yet about the test, right? So, doing some affinity diagramming. And so that is what I figured I would do today. And you get to see the nice, fascinating process of me doing that. Yeah. So it's gonna be, it's gonna be one of those streams. So let me see here. So let me see. This is user number 2. With a yellow star, that means that you tapped it correctly. Okay. And so you're just going to tap all of them. Okay, so let me up this. Oops, sorry. You don't have to do it. It's not like it's a. This is going to be awesome. 30 inches, almost. If I could do. All right, so let's take a look at user number 2. Of course, I blurred all the stuff out, obviously, because this is supposed to be anonymous. I also have a camera that's pointing straight at them too. Obviously, I'm not going to show that on here, but I'll be looking at kind of like all of that data as well. So let me see here. In fact, let me move user number 9 out the way. So which one is this? User number 2. See, I did there, so I was getting them set up. In fact, why don't I duplicate that? Okay. Number 4. You out of here. Number 2. Okay. So it's going to be interesting because I've never done something quite like this before. So to be honest with you, and that's always the interesting with UX design when you're doing your testing is you should be seeing some patterns. There should be some kind of patterns that emerge, some kind of something uniform emerging from it. If not, then you really need to consider, okay, did I collect the right people? Did I ask them the right questions? Did they answer the right questions in the survey? Did the testing, was the testing set up properly, right? There's a lot of things that you need to, you'll need to think about. But generally, if you did a good job setting up the surveys and, asking the right questions, and your testing is, set up good, you're going to start seeing patterns. And I'll say that I I have already seen, and that's the interesting thing too, and that's what makes it really exciting when you're doing testing, is you'll of course see a lot of these patterns before you start writing any of this stuff down. And I already have started seeing a lot of patterns, and I'm like really, really excited, especially because I had some assumptions walking into this, and I'm learning that I was incorrect about some of those assumptions, which is very exciting. And also too, it brought in a whole nother factor that I did not consider. So, but again, it's, I don't want to bias myself out here. Like you want to let the data do the talking. And so, but it's interesting to see that these possible patterns are emerging. And again, that it's just, I don't know, at least I'm a nerd for this kind of stuff. So you get excited because you're like, oh snap, man. Like you're learning something new, right? So, all right. Alrighty. All right. Thank you, sir. So you're sure that's comfortable for you? Okay. If I could do real quick, could I measure your, are you right-handed or left-handed?
Right-handed.
Right. Could you hold your arm out? I just want to measure it real quick. That's kind of see here. 30 inches? Almost. Okay, so user number 2 has a arm length is 30 inches. Okay. And user number 2 is one of my tall people. Okay. Okay, good. And so, okay, this is good. Yeah, so like I mentioned, I have this height to arm ratio thing. Like I said, I don't even know if that's a real thing. I assume there must be a real thing, right? But I put this in here to make sure that, cut it off. Can I measure your arm? Can I measure your arm with this switchblade? Would that be okay? But I put this in here to make sure that, to just see if there was anything that was like wildly, like, it's to check my data, to make sure my data is indeed correct, and so I stuck this in here. Like I said, I don't even know if that's an actual thing or not. I assume it is, but I just kind of stuck that in there in case I measured someone's arm incorrectly, The Queen is stepping down in Denmark. I don't even, let me think here. Why is the Queen stepping down in Denmark? Let me see. Let me see. So what happened? I mean, I don't know anything, to be honest. I don't know anything about Denmark, and I don't know anything about monarchies, let alone the Queen of Denmark. Some kind of scandal or something? Possibly. I don't know. Yeah. I'm definitely not the person. But okay, so his arm length is 30 inches long. Awesome. And it seems like, this ratio thing is not super crazy, so all right. Exactly. Okay, can you do me a favor? Could you hold this end to your chest? Okay. I just want to see like what your distance is from the wheel. So it looks like you're 19 inches right on there. Cool. Let me go back. I believe you said 19 inches, but let me make sure. My goodness, why is my computer having so much trouble? Hold on. Dude, what is with my computer? Oh my goodness, I'm not even doing anything. Why is my computer freaking out? Okay, good enough. Not perfect, but good enough. Let's see here. Alrighty. Alright, thank you, sir. Very much. So you're sure that's comfortable for you? Okay. If I could Can you guys hear that okay? Real quick. I think you can. Measure your, are you right-handed or left-handed?
Right-handed.
Right. Could you hold your arm out? I just want to measure.
It looks like it's coming through my speakers too.
That's kind of weird. 30 inches, almost exactly.
Okay, so 30
Could
inches.
you do me a favor? Could you hold this end to your chest? I just want to see like what your distance is from the wheel. So it looks like you're 19 inches right on there. Cool.
Okay, so, and then they're 19 inches from the wheel. So yeah, this is user number 2, right? Yeah. So 19 inches from the wheel. Okay. Cool. All right, so now we can look at, so now we'll be looking at, you know, how he feels about the screener. She had, like I said, yeah, back surgery, want to hand over the throne or else sign, so time will step down, change your mind after surgery. Oh, okay. That seems pretty non-controversial. All right, so now we're going to look at, okay, so what does the user have to say about these different tests? You know, how does he, so we're going to see.
Awesome. I know it's kind of weird. All right. Cool. All right, so
My script is there.
awesome. So thank you again very much for helping me out with this test. This is going to be pretty simple. So what you're going to see on the screen, this is a touch screen. You're going to see some rows of buttons.
Okay.
And all you got to do is just tap all of them until they turn blue with a yellow star. That means that you tapped it correctly.
Okay.
And so you're just going to tap all of them. You don't have to do it as, you know, it's not like it's a speed test or nothing like that. And then afterward, I'm just going to have a couple questions for you.
All right.
Okay. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions or anything before we start?
No.
All right. We could start test 1. So, go ahead.
Just hit the green.
They they do not get paid at all. Yeah, these are all, I mentioned before, these are all people that I know. Yeah, because I know that this, especially because this testing requires like a physical location, and it's not something that can be done over Zoom. So I try to make this as you know, what's the word, convenient as possible. So like I would drive to them. I got it set up so I could drive to them so that I can, you know, because as you'll learn when you get into it, it's really, it's easy to get volunteers, but it's really hard to help, you know, get them to participate because life is just, you know, and, you know, life just gets crazy and, you know, they also don't realize what's required, you know, until they already get started. So, they get paid in friendship, I guess. No, I'm probably going to have, like I'll have them all over or I'll get them a gift or something afterward. All right, so in this one, I'm asking him to try out the first screen there. Oh my God, why?
A speed test or nothing like that. And then afterward, I'm just going to have a couple questions for you.
All right.
Okay. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions or anything before we start?
No.
All right. We could start test 1. So go ahead.
So let's see how.
Green button.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Awesome. Thank you. All right. So it's got a few questions for you.
All right,
So
now we
what are
find
your
out.
thoughts on the buttons? Just whatever your initial thoughts are. Like how did it feel tapping on this stuff?
Yeah. I think
I think the volume is real. I gotta up the volume on these videos. It's about to chime. Sorry.
I don't know if it's just me, but I kind of, it looks not off center, but you know, I tap it and I wasn't sure if I was tapping the center of it. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Because it's small.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But yeah, I feel fine.
Okay. Yeah. Tell me about the comfortability of tap.
So that's one thing that he said on this one is that essentially, let me see. When I was doing this, I got rid of this. Okay. Oh, that's right. I dropped the text size. Okay. So that's one thing that he mentioned. Is so that's one thing he said. He's like, I don't know if it's not centered, but he's like, I tried tapping, it didn't work. So, that's I don't want to say anything because I don't want to I don't know, I guess put words in his mouth. But that's from it being too small, right? So 40 pixels was too small for him. It took him a couple tries to tap it. Did it feel comfortable tapping them?
Yeah, I would say so. Not very strenuous. I tend to do.
Okay. He also said it felt comfortable tapping them, which you might think, oh, isn't that different from here? But I don't know. Whatever. He said it, so. He said it, so it gets recorded.
Sit back, so the further ones, are obviously a little bit more effort.
He said the furthest ones take a little more effort. Gotcha. Which ones would you say were the easiest to tap?
Probably the center ones.
So which ones are those exactly?
Like this inside this square.
Okay. And that was something, yeah, so he said that these center ones were the easiest ones to tap. So it's a good question of, do I give it a green or a yellow button here? Honestly, let me see. So you said these first 3 rows? Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to say yellow. Because, let me see, is it this yellow? Yeah. I'm going to say yellow because he did say they were off-centered. But again, too, I'm also keeping in mind that's it's hard to say well, what's the difference between easy and super easy, and then keep in mind he hasn't seen these other ones yet, right? So for example, I might in this test mark these as green, and then I start doing this, I'm like, oh well, he definitely liked these ones better than this one, so I better knock that down to yellow. I'm making them yellow now though because I've already been through this test, so I already know what he's gonna say. So, but that's just kind of, sometimes you got to do that. Was there any difference between tapping the top, the middle, and the bottom?
I mean, the edges on the edges is obviously a little harder.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you said the edges are harder. So what we'll do is, we'll make these green then. And remembering that this is not like an exact science or anything like that. It's just, yeah, like I said, it's not an exact science at all. It's just, you're just trying to look for patterns essentially.
On the edge.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really tapping the actual screen.
Yeah. So he said that the ones around the edge are
how about
difficult.
These ones here?
Some mouse button.
No one problem.
Okay. Okay. And then you said these ones.
So that's the interesting thing. So I don't know why this.
Was there any difference between tapping the top, the middle, and the bottom?
But he said the ones that were closest to him actually didn't have much trouble.
A little harder.
Mm-hmm.
I kept tapping right on the edge.
Yeah.
So I wasn't really tapping the actual screen.
Yeah. Yeah. Gotcha. And how about these ones here?
Yeah, no one problem.
Okay. Okay. And then you said these ones
Yeah.
were more difficult.
Yeah. Well, that's just my seat position.
So he said he didn't have any trouble with these, right? But he also said, I also asked, well, where are the easiest ones to get to? And he said, well, these ones here. He pointed to these ones here, right? So I would say that's a green. And then I said, okay, was there any difference between top, middle, and bottom? And he said, what, the edges are tougher. So that means that these right here were the easiest for him, presumably. And the top, wave. And then these, were harder, so then I'm going to knock them down a grade, right? Or maybe what I'll do is I'll make these like a lighter green instead, And that also helps me for future testing to know that, you know what, let's do this sort of gradient thing, right? And then he said, now I asked him about these, and he said, oh, I didn't really have a problem, right? But again, he said that these were the easiest ones. He didn't say these. He said these ones. Okay, so what does that mean? It means that I could probably comfortably say that he's like, you know, these weren't, I didn't have as much trouble. I didn't have much trouble getting to these, but these ones were the easiest. So then, and of course, remembering that he said the edges were the toughest ones, so these ones I'd probably downgrade to yellow. Right? Which don't necessarily, which again, is not an exact science. It's more of just kind of looking for some patterns, right? And so since these are, so I'm trying to think what would be considered. It's also interpreting these yellow colors. Right, and then he said that these ones were the toughest ones to get, which again, which you know what, they're all on the edge, so. Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, all I want is your honest feedback on it. Yeah, cool. Sorry. Yeah, so what I had, the way I did this is I had the screen strapped to my, you can see the straps here. Oh my God, these stupid straps. It didn't seem to impact the test a whole lot. The thing was, they were just really thick. I got some straps that are much thinner now. But I was trying to find a way to put this thing on here without breaking my car, or without breaking it. But anyway, there's a laptop. You could probably see the white screen here. Yeah, I had a laptop that had my Figma file, and I dropped it off onto this external monitor, and so that's how I made it work. Because like I said, if I asked them to come to my place to do this, like, it's never going to happen. So I drove to their place. So I was like, all you have to do is come out of your house, 10 minutes, you're done. You know, that's how you get people to do testing. You make it really, really simple. Technical stuff, all sorts of technical stuff to get figured out. Okay, awesome. All right, so let me start testing. Okay, so now we're going on to the next test here. Yeah, so what I got to do too, though, is, like, you know, it's a combination of two things. I'm not just, I guess say it's in this way, you could say it's quantitative as well as qualitative, right? I guess you kind of say this is quantitative, right? In fact, let me think here. Actually, I might make, oh man, it's so hard to, trying to think here. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. I'm psyching myself out here. Like I said, I probably don't have to even get this thorough and this scientific about it, but you know, I'd rather be too much than not enough. But like I said, I'm collecting data, you know, about this, but I need to record the things that he's saying. I think I'm just gonna start with this stuff here, and then I'll collect his statements, you know, after the fact. It's hard to kind of do both at the same time. So this is test number 2. On here, they're orange. On here, they're green. It's because the very first test I did was one up here, and I had them all green. And I think it was perfectly fine, but the problem is for my very first test, the camera that was aimed at the screen didn't record it. Well, it did, and then I couldn't. Anyway, it's a long story, but I don't have that footage for the very first test. And so I was like, okay, then, and that's something, you know, I was like, okay, I need to have some fail safes here to help me, like, if I had to do this just by audio, I need some kind of cues that they could use or I could use to help determine, like, what exactly he said. So I made them different colors, you know, to help, you know, so that I could, you know, they can refer to it as the orange test or the blue test or the green test or the red test, right? So I did a couple of those things. I also changed up some of the wording, the things that I was saying on the recording. You know, like I'd say, like, okay, so what do you think about these middle ones? And I'm like, they know, I'm pointing to it. They know which ones I'm talking about, but I'm saying it out loud for my own purposes, so that when I go back and listen to the recording, I know what, you know, I was referring to. All right, so he's doing the second test here. These are, I think, 64 pixels. It's 16 pixels more. Yeah, 64. No. Is it 64? Awesome.
56.
So what are your thoughts on the buttons?
A lot smoother, a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the buttons are bigger. But, yeah, that was a lot better.
Said it was a lot easier.
How
Nice.
about the comfortability?
Better.
Okay.
Did feel like there was a better reaction to the screen.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing, and that in fact that's some feedback I got quite a bit when it came to the 40 pixel before bumping up to this next one, which like I said, I think it's 56, 56, 64. Oh, my bad. Oh, the first ones were 48 pixels. Are they? Oh, they are. Okay. Yeah, I knew I wasn't complete, idiot. Okay. Yeah, the next ones were 64. But that's what I got a lot, is that they would say, oh yeah, this seemed more reactive, right? Which they thought that there was something wrong with the screen at first. But it was like, no, actually the buttons are too small. So that's why it doesn't, that's why it seems not reactive, because the buttons are actually too small. There's nothing wrong with the screen. So, but again, you don't correct them. You don't say anything. You let them just say, right? So we'll.
Opposed to, like, trying to keep copying it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Okay. Did so which ones felt more comfortable?
I mean, they all felt pretty good, honestly.
So that's good. He said they all felt much more comfortable
Compared to the previous
Yeah.
test?
compared to the previous test.
Okay. So before you had said these were, I guess you could say, you said that this area was the easiest before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did it still feel that way?
Nah, it was unison across the board.
Unison across?
So that's interesting, right? Now he's like, oh, it's pretty unison across the board. How much easier, right?
Okay. Were you able to see these buttons okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Alrighty.
So that one, like that test actually threw me off. I was like, because it was very different from the other tests that I had done, and the ones I did after that one. Because as you can see from this first user, like it varied. In fact, I think I'm gonna go back through his too. I'm gonna try to. Yeah, like I said, that one might be a little bit of a wash because I didn't have the recording of the screen. But see, that was very interesting. It was like that, I said, okay, he's like, oh, it seems pretty good uniform, right? I'm like, okay, well, specify without putting words into his mouth, do you feel like these are still the easiest? No, it's uniform. Really? All of them? Like even these ones? Like, but these ones are farther away. Shouldn't they be harder? So that's where, see, that's very interesting, right? I was not expecting that. And also it's different from what other users were saying. Again, I can't remember every interview, but you also keep in mind, well, he's in the tall category. And pretty much so far, I've only been in an interview with one of the tall people on my list, right? The rest have been medium and short. So that's something that I'm very interested in. I'm like, okay, interesting, right? And I tried getting to talk to him a little bit, like, specify a little bit more, but I mean, he said straight up uniform. I asked him, I asked him a couple different ways, right? A couple times, but he said everything was uniform. So I have to just say that, this is what he said, he could mean something else, but I have to go with what he said, right? He said everything was good. Everything was uniform, right? But yeah, this was a this testing was very interesting to me because I was like, now that is a very interesting observation, right? That the tall person said that, starting on just the second test, everything was equally easy, right? So I'm looking forward to when I get my second tall test in there, because I'm very curious to see if they say the same thing. If they do, then it's like, man, well then they said it, man. And so yeah, I'm super excited to see what comes out of it.
All right, go ahead.
So these are like 80 something.
Alrighty. So same question. What's your thoughts?
Pretty good response. I mean, this button I missed completely, but it still got it.
Mm-hmm.
I tapped the edge. I guess I got fat fingers. Hit the screen too.
Yeah. Or the button's too small. That could be it. There you go.
In terms of comfortability.
Yeah, same as the last one.
Gotcha. Okay. Did you feel that you had to stretch, far to touch any or anything?
No, not compared to the first one.
Gotcha. In the first one, to reiterate, in the first one, did you feel like you had to stretch to get some?
Yeah, the furthest one.
Yeah. So again, I'm trying to be like, I'm still kind of like, he said everything is good again. I'm like, really? Even the further, and so this is why I'm asking this question again, is I'm like, is there something that you meant to say that, but he said again, he's like,
here equally, or would you say there was like the top is worse than the bottom or anything like that? Or
I say equally.
Equally?
Yeah.
but again, equally, he's like, no, it's equal, man. Like even top and bottom, it's equal. So, I got to do, now he said he had trouble getting this button here, right? So I was like, okay, need to learn about that. But something else that that's different from my screen on the Tesla is mine has a bevel. Theirs is completely flat and mine sticks up. So that kind of like gets in the way of your finger. He said what he said though. So I'm like, whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm going to do it. I'm putting it there, right? I'm pretty sure it was just sort of the bevel issue. But again, it's not for me to decide.
So how did this feel compared to the second one, the test right before this?
Very similar.
Very similar?
Said it felt similar to the one before this, which is the one where he said everything was
Any other
perfect.
thoughts
So
on it? Alrighty. Yeah,
quick test. This is how you get people. And this one is.
Gotcha. So tell me about these.
These were a little bigger, but I feel like I missed the screen a little bit more. That just might be me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think they're fine.
Cool. Comfortability. What are your thoughts?
Pretty comfortable. I think out of all of them, the second one I felt the most comfortable.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was super interesting. He said the second test was the most comfortable. Which I was like, what? Even though he knew the buttons were smaller, I'm like, how can a smaller button be more comfortable, right? But that's something to you keep in mind that, it's like, wow, that's an interesting observation. Like, that's not something you would expect to hear, but I mean, it was said, okay? It was said. So that he said it, okay? That's it.
How do you feel about this one versus that's the second test?
I mean,
Link, oh man, yeah, good to see. Oh, I'm sorry, I completely missed your my bad, man. I missed your comment about the queen abdicating. I'm so sorry, man. I apologize. I missed it. No, thank you so much for joining, man. I appreciate it. Again, this was completely out the blue. I didn't announce it or nothing. I was just like, I got to do this anyway. I might as well do it on stream because I have to. But thanks so much for joining. It's been great. Been great seeing you. Yeah, and I'm hoping I'll be streaming more now that I got a bulk of my work done. I'm hoping I'll be streaming more. But thank you so much for joining, man. It's always great. Always great to see you. Have a good night.
There are a lot of similarities, right? Obviously, it gets easier to see with the bigger blocks.
Mm-hmm.
But I just feel like the second one had a better response.
Let's talk about
this one
response.
I missed a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
But even the previous one, I hit the edge, but it got it.
Mm-hmm.
This one, I did the same thing on these two, but it didn't get it. Had it, the top.
Gotcha.
So,
Gotcha.
Yeah, now I'm listening to it. It sounds like it was more of a technical difficulty than anything.
And, gotcha. So you had said so.
I was as I said it, Link. I was like, I don't even like. What do you even say? I can't. You know how I can? Because the queen is looking through your window right now. She retired, man. So what she does now is she spies on people now. So that's how the queen. Yeah. I got a GoPro strapped to the Queen, and she's walking around and spying on people in Denmark for me. So that's what it is.
In terms of
You'll see this in your nightmares now. The Queen walking around with a GoPro live streaming.
comfortability, to reiterate, how does it feel? Like, were there any that were easier to get to than others?
I would say the center ones.
Center ones
Yeah.
easier to get to than. You had said
The second one had a better response. 'Cause like this one I missed a couple times, but even the previous one I hit the edge, but it got it. This one I just
Yeah, the audio on these.
but it didn't get it.
I put all these together in Resolve, and
Gotcha.
I normalized the audio, but I think I got to bump that audio up quite a bit because I can see from the levels right there. You guys can probably barely hear that.
Okay. And gotcha. So you had said so in terms of comfortability, to reiterate, how does it feel? Like, were there any that were easier to get to than others?
I would say the center ones.
Center ones.
Yeah.
Easier to get to than okay. And then comparing these ones here and these ones here, would you say how do they feel comfortable wise? You know, this nearest one, this furthest one.
Nearest one feels more comfortable. Obviously, I'm not stretching. But even if I do hit the edge, because I'm noticing I tend to hit the edge on this. I feel like this. Obviously, since this is closer, I can, if I miss it, double top it.
Yeah.
But there, if I'm, miss it, I still gotta stretch back out.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. Awesome. So in terms of all those tests, so I'll just really quick. So this was the first one.
Yeah. So he actually just reiterated, and again, that's me trying to like make sure I understand like what he's saying, making sure, because that's the other thing is you're like, you do not want to put words in their mouth ever. And that's why you got to be very careful with what you say. So like, for example, I'd say in one of the tests when I said, you said that the middle ones are most comfortable, is that true here too? I shouldn't have put it that way at all. I won't say at all, but I was referring to what he had said before, so I'm giving him like a springboard. I can't remember. Yeah, I may have started with a general question of like which ones felt more comfortable, and yeah, this one was a technical difficulty. He just said, yeah, I don't know. I might be yelling at myself when I don't deserve it, but whatever. Yeah. So I'm always asking questions, reiterating questions, just because the idea of like all of these being easier is like, that can't be true. Is that really true? It might be true, but it's really hard to it's just not something that you can fully believe, right? And so that's why I asked were there any more comfortable than others? And then he just said, well, I'd say the middle ones, right? So it is, and then I said, okay, compared to this one and this one, and he said, well, obviously closer is more comfortable, right? So there we go. But I'll put it this way, I'm not going to, but again, that comes from the trickiness of saying like, well, what's the difference between very easy and a little easy? It's like, it all depends on everyone's definition, right? He definitely did not say, like, so for example, like, of course, I'm going to put these as green. He said these were the next most comfortable, right? But he didn't say that these were hard to get to. So I'm going to leave these green, even though technically these are easier to get to than these. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He did not say they were hard, so they're not going to be yellow, right? To be honest, I'm going to strongly assume that this rule is true for these other two tests too, even though he didn't say it. But you know what? I'm not gonna mess with it. I was talking to him specifically about this one, and this is what he said it on. I'm just gonna roll with it. Just going to go with what he said because, like I mentioned, it's not an exact science, right? How do you prioritize what they say versus what they do? For example, if you see they struggle in an area, but say something else. Oh, man. So, yeah, so you want to be as quiet. So it depends on the scenario. It depends on the scenario. And what level that you're at. You want to be as silent as possible, right? You definitely don't want to help them. At least help them in terms of what is like you're trying to test, right? In fact, I believe it happened in one of these tests. In fact, I believe it happened in my first test. I believe it happened with user number 9, which I don't know why this says 10. I believe it happened with user number 9. He did not even see. There was one of these buttons here. One of these ones here. He did not even see it, right? So I'm not going to be like, oh, you missed a button there. Oh no. I did at the end. I noticed that he didn't tap these ones, and I was like, and he was doing it like in a left to right, like a zigzag pattern, right? And I noticed he missed these, but I'm not going to say anything until the very, very end, where I said, oh, you missed those ones. Oh, didn't even know they were there. Bam, I got it. I know exactly, so the thing is, like, while he's doing this, I'm not going to help him, right? I want him to do the task from beginning to end while, I do not want to help him. Because then, it's like, well, I'm supporting any problems there are, right? Because I'm hiding those problems by helping them, right? But after he's done, after it's like, it's clear that he's like done tapping stuff, then I could say, oh, you missed those ones over there, and then I can get, that's kind of like a way of getting like his feedback, on it, right? So when he's done completing the task, if there's something that needs to be done, then absolutely you can say something, but not during the process of it. Now, if it's a technical problem, right? And I'm trying to think of an example because this was really, really simple. For example, with my job, the way I do tests, because all the people I test with are like way, way out there. We get on Teams and I share my screen with them with the prototype on there, and then I give them control of my screen, right? And so not many people have done that before, like had like not only someone share their screen but give them control of the screen. They may not know how to like what to actually do, and so I might assist them with where to start and stuff like that. But beyond that, and again, like I said, it really depends on what it is you're doing exactly. But like, if I'm testing a workflow, I don't want to interrupt, and I don't want to help them. I want it. It should be something they can figure out on their own. Otherwise, it may not be good, user experience design, right? It should be pretty self-explanatory. But yeah, if they're having technical difficulties, or they've already like you can already tell, like, okay, they're trying, and it's just like they're done trying, then okay, then you could help them. Even when you help them, you don't necessarily want to tell them what to do or how to do it. You just might point something out. But yeah, when it comes to especially user testing, you want to be, while they're doing stuff, you want to be as quiet as you can. Because then the problem is, you start helping them or you say something that clues them off. Well, then you have to consider that your data could be dirty, right? You could have muddied the water a little bit. So yeah, that's what I would say my answer off the top of my head, would be. Be as quiet as possible. If it's a technical issue, sure, absolutely help them, but just with the technical issue. Um, and if they miss something completely or they can't figure out what to do, wait until they like it's clear that they're like wait until they I'll put it this way, wait until they look at you and be like, I need help, right? Then you help them, because you then at the point you don't want to be a jerk and be like, nope, you got to figure it out yourself, Yeah, that's what I say. In fact, I think the Nielsen Norman Group has an article, or they have an article that talks about that kind of a thing. But generally, that's the thing, and then sometimes too, sometimes you build the prototypes and stuff, and it just wasn't set up correctly, or or you're having like a technical difficulty on your prototype, right? It's not building prototypes in Figma and Adobe XD are not always, sometimes you're trying to like prototype some really fancy stuff, and sometimes it doesn't work so great. That happens, man. It happens. And sometimes I'll be like, oh, okay, you know what? This was actually supposed to happen. Sometimes that just happens, and what can you do? You just, fix it before the next person type deal. But that's what I would say the balance is. Yeah, that's what I would say. And yeah, that happens from time to time.
The green ones.
Let me see.
The second one was the.
So here I'm asking him which one he preferred.
The third one was the blue ones, and the last one obviously was the red ones. Which would you say was the most comfortable?
Number 2.
Oh, hold on a second. Yeah, let me see.
And that's
Like, you see what they struggle with the edge buttons, but they say everything was comfortable. Which would you go with? Oh, I'm sorry, DJ. Fandom. So let me see. Like, interpreting the results. So pretty much, I mean, I'd say that's where the that's where the affinity diagram comes into play. When I start, like I've already gone through the test and I did this, right? I've thought about doing this in front of y'all, but I think that'd be too boring. It's going to get written down. If he said he had trouble, like, I don't care what he says. It's going to get written down. It's going to be assigned to, this screen, right? And that's where I will do the quote unquote interpreting, right? Also, too, I also have the benefit of knowing that I already knew that edge was going to be a problem, because I tested this and I was like, man, that edge is annoying, right? Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. When it comes to this, this is strictly for, to be honest, this is mostly just for me to see if I can map out a touch touch zones and touch targets using this. That's pretty much all this is for. But those statements, they're all going to get written down here. And again, if he says, oh, it's comfortable, oh, it's the edge, I'll keep that in mind, right? Because I mean, when he said it, I'm thinking like, okay, do you mean the bevel on the screen? Because my screen is not flat. It has like an indent, like the screen indents, right? Or do you mean, it's just hard to get to on the edge, right? So I might ask, it's like, say for instance, like if I'm like, okay, I need clarification on that because I need to know one or the other, right? I might ask that question. But I'll say, like, up to this point, I've had several user testing sessions, and they all had problems with the edge sticking up. So when he said it, I already knew what he meant. So I didn't bother saying anything. Yeah, and like I said, when it comes to, like I said, infinity diagram wise, I'm writing down both statements that he said was comfortable and he struggled with the edge, right? They're both getting written down, right? And then I will eventually, and then after I go through several people, I'll understand what he means. Hopefully it'll come to me. I'll understand what he means, right? But when it comes to this thing here, I don't even know if, like I said, this is just a thing that I'm doing to see if I can create a touch zone from this. I don't even know if this is going to work. I think it will, because the testing I've done so far, it's been pretty repeatable. The results have been very repeatable. And repetition is what they're saying. And then as for my like color coding this, like I said, this is not an exact science. This is just me trying to make some kind of sense of it, you know? Yeah, so, and it's like I said, like on this last test, or like the second one, like remember he said, he's like, all, like these are all uniform. These are all uniform. And it's like, are you sure? Because you said last time these were hard to get to, and these were a little tougher to get to, but not easy. Are these all can't be uniformly comfortable? Like there's no way. Like I know that you have to reach for these. I'm watching you reach for these. I know they're tougher. You know, which I'm sorry, DJ. I rant sometimes. I apologize. This is probably what you meant, right? Yeah, I mean that's the thing. And I think that's why at the very end I said, you know, did you feel that you had to reach for any? You know, because I'd rather ask, you know, which ones are more comfortable. Were some easier or harder to get to than others, right? I want to know. Did you feel like these were harder to get to than these because you had to reach for them? But I don't want to say it because I don't want to muddy the waters. So I mean, I waited till the end to say it. I highly, highly assume that these were tougher to get to than these, you know? But if he didn't say it, he didn't say it. But of course, that's why we test with multiple people. Because I'm not just looking for what this one guy said. I'm looking for what they all said and the patterns that come from it. And odds are, and I already know because I've already done several testing sessions at this point, just haven't mapped them yet. These are harder to, you know, these are the hardest to get to, and these are somewhat hard, and then these ones actually turn out to be the easiest, which I thought that these would be the easiest, but actually no, for a couple of factors I've learned, right? But also too, I have a camera, and that's something else I did too, is I have a camera that's facing forward so I can see them, and I can see how much they're reaching, right? So that's how I would determine like, you know, like on a cell phone, you would put the most important stuff like in the middle and towards where your thumb would be, right? Well, on this screen, oh my God, where was I going with this? Oh, I'm looking for what is safe, right? Which would be not having to extend your arm out all the way, right? My assumption is, I already know, but my assumption is that is more unsafe than not having to reach all the way out. So I have a camera facing forward. And that's something I'm going to collect as well, is how, you know, were these buttons something they had to stretch for, you know? And of course I'm not showing that camera here because, you know, to protect his privacy. I mean, everything's blurred out anyway, but yeah, I apologize. I mean, yeah, between the affinity diagram, this type of thing, and then of course you're testing with multiple people, that's how you, yeah. Because it could just be he may not be super great with expressing himself. And that happens all the time. Hold on, my dog is going crazy. What do you want, pup? Come here. Up. Come on. Come on, stop barking. Come here. She barked at me and then walked away. Okay. Ugh. But yeah, you record everything, but you let all the testing kind of like make sense. So I apologize. I kind of just flooded you with information because I'm sorry. My ADHD goes crazy sometimes, but I apologize. I hope some of that made sense.
Okay. Fantastic.
You can see this is why it takes me so long to do YouTube videos, because I am really bad with forming sentences and ideas.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time. Very much appreciated.
You're welcome, bro.
Awesome.
I'm glad, DJ. I'm glad.
Yeah. Any questions or anything?
I mean, you know why you're doing it.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So I'd say his test is done. Like I said, I'm gonna do the affinity diagram later because that'd be really boring to watch. This is more exciting. Most of it's probably useless, but it's just to be. So this is user number 4. Oh, which is this one here, I believe. All right, and so this is a. Yeah, this will be kind of cool. This is a person that I've categorized in the medium height. That I have categorized, he is. You see, and he's someone who he's a heavy driver. He drives quite often, and he drives a vehicle with a touchscreen. So this is somebody that, you know, should be pretty well, you know, they should have some pretty good insight, you know, into what would be needed for this type of thing. So transparent as I can about the research and finding proper patterns and helping me with this. This will be of buttons, and so when you tap them, and I'm just going to ask you to tap them. The volume's much better on this one. They'll turn into blue with yellow stars, so that lets you know that you tapped it correctly. Okay. And then I'm just going to ask you to tap all of them. And I'll just have a couple questions for you. Oh, you know what? Pretty much what you'll transparent as I can about. Most of it's probably useless, but it's transparent with me with this. This will be a very brief. I need to measure him. Did I measure? Pretty much what you'll see is I hope I measured. You know, rows of buttons, and so when you tap them, and I'm just going to ask you to tap them. When you tap them, they'll turn into. See, even in real life, I can't seem to like get myself together. I have to write everything out word for word because my brain just goes crazy. Okay. Okay. Any questions or anything? Hopefully they're used to it though. Okay. Then we could start with test number 1. You know what? Before we do that, I'm sorry. I forgot. This is where I measure. See? Oh my goodness. Okay, thank goodness. You know, adjust your seats. Okay. That's right. That's right. I had to make sure they adjusted their seat to how they would like it. That's also very important because I want it to be natural. On the left side, you see there's control. Yeah. But I also realized too that they're not used to my vehicle. So, and that's the other reason I'm measuring their chest to the wheel, because I know that's probably going to change between each test. And so I'm kind of using that to also, you know, I'm collecting that also to see if there's some kind of like pattern, right? Because that's the other thing. Like I'm looking at how easily they're able to handle certain tests, but I'm also going to compare that to their height, their closeness to the wheel, and their arm length. I'm trying to see if there's any patterns there, right? And so that would be helpful for, you know, designing, you know, later on. But also too, I'm using that to make sure that testing conditions are consistent, right? So with every test that I'm doing when they're in the car, I'm measuring their chest to the wheel to make sure that we're still, you know, somewhere in the same, you know. Like if you were going to be driving, yeah. This feels good. I think after this one we'll do one with someone who's in the short category.
This feels good.
Feel good?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I'll end the stream there. Really quick. Are you right-handed?
I am right-handed.
Okay. Yes. Could you just hold your arm out like that? Okay. So I just want to measure. Hitting stuff. So it's 28.5 inches. 28.5 inches. Okay. This is user number 4, right? User number 4. Okay, doesn't use their tablet very often, their home tablet, but they're pretty heavy driver. And again, they use a touchscreen. They're a heavy driver and they have a touchscreen in their vehicle, so they use that very heavily. And because I'm talking to myself, I completely forgot what they said. Are you right-handed?
I am right-handed.
Okay,
yes.
Could you just hold your arm out like that? Okay. So I just want to measure. So it's 28.5 inches. 28.5 inches. Okay, so number 4 is 28.5, which nice. Okay, and you know this ratio tells me that I'm guessing we're still good here. Actually, I'm curious. So this is also interesting too. You know that the two people that I've measured so far that are short, you know, they got shorter, obviously as you'd assume, but again, you don't know. Shorter arms, you know, than ones with medium and ones with tall, you know. but the ratio is relatively like, not too far from each other. I might even, this person here, I might remeasure them to be sure that, that was indeed correct,
Exactly. Could
And
you
measure
hold
their
this
chest.
part
Yeah.
to your chest?
That's my chest.
I just want to measure how close you are to the wheel. And it looks like it's exactly 20 inches.
20 inches from the wheel. So again, user number 4, 20 inches from the wheel. Not too different from the person who's tall, right? So that's interesting. So at least, just from those 3 tests I've done, shorter people are closer to the wheel than taller people, right? Absolutely, DJ. Thank you so much for tuning in at all. I know this is not exactly the most exciting of stuff, but thank you so much for dropping in and supporting. I really do appreciate it. And this will be, to be honest with you, it's just going to be more of this if I kept going. But this will be posted on YouTube and Twitch. YouTube seems to be having trouble recording, streaming it, so I don't know. But and there'll be a YouTube video that will actually come out once I get to a certain point. I'm gonna release a YouTube video with the data and stuff that I found. But thank you so much for supporting. I really do appreciate it. So take care. We'll I'll have videos coming out in the future. But take care. Thank you so much for stopping in.
Okay.
So exactly 20 inches from the wheel. Awesome. Cool. Thank you. All right. So
Just need
here's
that
the first test. Go ahead. Just
further
just
away than
pull
the
over.
person who's
Yep,
tall.
simple.
But
Any
it's
order? In any order you like. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, DJ. Have a great one. See, he's having trouble with the edge there, right?
That was a tough one.
Yeah.
Which is pretty consistent.
Alrighty, so what
It's been pretty consistent among the testing that the ones on the edges. Well, but again, I guess it's tricky because, like I said, my thing has a bevel. But I don't know. I don't know. So to be honest, I do worry that might be messing with the data a little bit. But but still, designing for screens that also have a bevel too, though. It's also, that's
Your
important.
thoughts on the buttons?
Definitely had to reach for this second section here.
The second section?
That was a tough one.
Yeah. Alrighty. So what are your thoughts on the buttons?
Definitely had to reach for this second section.
Second section, right? Which, so you notice it's already red. That's exactly what the first person said. That the 2 here were the toughest. Right, so I'll leave those red for right now. I don't know where I got that from. Okay, so we said those are hardest.
Here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which section?
This section here. The
Yep.
most right. Those the
Okay.
last 2 columns to the right.
The last 2 columns.
Yeah, I had to.
That's why you specify. Because like I said, if I didn't have this footage, it would be too... I wouldn't be able to identify just from audio alone, so...
to do this. They're pretty small too, so I had to.
Pretty small.
Some of them didn't really capture my input. I think maybe they're a little bit small.
Gotcha. So you mentioned that these 2 furthest ones, these were the toughest
Mhm.
2.
Yeah, we're reiterating.
Which would you say were the easiest to?
I would say so. This square here, so that's the inner square section.
Okay.
At the bottom. Yeah.
Okay. So not the ones on the top, but these
Yeah.
2 in the middle and these 2 on the bottom.
Yes.
Interesting, isn't it? So that's, you're like, oh, not even including the top, right? Which, let's look at what he said, right? He said, okay, those are the easiest. Like I said, I got to go back through his, but again, but keep in mind, so he said, like I said, I might have to, and again, this one is audio only, so I actually might have him do the test again, to be honest with you. I don't think it would muddy the waters because it's just, but he said that, but it's interesting that, there's patterns already. And how about these ones here?
These were not great. I can see like how this would be hard to reach, especially if you're driving. This one's here to the left.
So that was the pattern that I thought was super interesting, because you assume that the closest ones will be easiest, and it gets harder as it goes farther away. But in actuality, what I got repeatedly was the ones in the closest actually were difficult because the wheel is in the way.
But they were a little bit more accessible than those to the right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And how'd you feel about the? So he said that, he's like, yeah, these were more accessible than these ones, but these ones were hard to get to, right? So that's, that's a yellow. These two up here. And I'm asking about.
No opinion. They feel pretty good. Yeah. Not as good as these ones, but not bad. Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. See, that's the kind of answers you want, right? So he's like, right? He's like, not, and that's kind of, yeah. When you start doing user tests, like your first couple of tests are going to be kind of rough, because you're like, I really don't know exactly what to ask. You don't know what kind of responses you'll get, right? And that's perfectly fine. That's why it's always good to like grab like a couple of like family members who are not involved in the pool and ask them. Because it kind of helps you out with that. I mean, even if you script it, you can't, there's certain things you just don't know, right? But there you go. I got him to say like, yeah, these were the easiest. Yeah, these weren't too bad. Not as easy, they're harder than this and this. These were harder than these. It's like perfect, man. It's exactly what I want to hear, right?
Gotcha. Okay.
That clarity. Let's go.
But they were a little bit more accessible than those to the right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how'd you feel about these two up here?
No opinion. They feel pretty good. Yeah. Not as good as these ones, but not bad. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So these were the hardest.
Mm-hmm.
These were difficult.
Yeah.
Right. These four were the easiest, and then these two was like, they're easier but not as easy as
yeah,
these.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Gotcha. Cool. Awesome. All right. So we can. Yeah. And so I'm also. So of course he said that. I'm very tempted to make this like a light yellow. In fact, let me think. Yes, it's hard to like interpret like what these colors mean exactly. But like I said, it's not an exact science. Just having green and yellow and red is like probably good enough, especially because things are getting pretty consistent. And again, that's how you know that that you're testing and stuff, and the groundwork you've been doing is going really well. Is that there should be some kind of patterns, especially among people that you could say are in the same category, right? There should be some patterns emerging, to be honest, many times in the second one, but especially the third, fourth, you should start seeing some stuff, right? But if you do see that means that you're doing a really good job. If you don't, it's cool. I mean, just think about it. But if you're like, I think everything's fine, it's like, that's cool. But just keep going. Going to test number 2. Okay, so I got him on test number 2 here. Like I said, I'm really tempted based on what he said to make this a light. Like I said, scale wise, like dark green means really easy. Light green means easy. It's like light yellow technically means like a shade below this green, right? But, and it's like color wise, it's like, well, how does that work? So, like I said, I'm tempted to make it because I assume this was easier than these, but I don't know. He didn't say it. Whatever. Like I said, not a huge deal.
It's a larger.
And you should be able to just do a quick tap for them as well.
Okay.
The screen should be. Oh, see, this would have been a great example for DJ to see. So, So a lot of yeah, so like in this example, in fact I had a couple people, they were pressing really hard on the screen, not like hard, but like they could just I don't think they knew how sensitive the screen was. Like you can just tap it like this. It's actually a pretty good screen. I was surprised. But they didn't know that. So that, I guess you could say, was making it a little more difficult for them. So I just told them, you can just tap it, it'll work just fine. And be responsive enough for that. And so that made You know, so you know if they would have said the test is hard for that reason, it's like, you know, that might be because they misunderstood the technology.
Okay. So
That might be something you might say.
I felt that similar. Now it was definitely easier overall. Still, the more challenging ones were the same, but these ones were a lot easier to reach.
So that's very interesting, right? So as the buttons got bigger, so he said that these ones are the hardest, so I'll leave that at red for right now. But he said that these got to be easier to reach, the ones on the inside now. Which again also tells you like, oh, so maybe it's not a universal thing that these are like difficult to get to. Maybe when the buttons are getting bigger, you can actually make it easier, right? That tells you some design patterns to follow, right? Again, you want to wait till you get all of this information. You want to wait till you get all the testing before you start making, you know, turn into design decisions. But you're starting to see some interesting patterns emerge.
And easier to see too.
So the innermost column was a lot easier than before.
A lot easier than before.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you said these last two ones here were the toughest.
Toughest still. Yeah.
Okay. And which would you say were the easiest?
It continues to be this, but just easier now.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So you still feel that these right here are the easiest.
Yeah.
These two, they're still like
Middle. Yeah.
yeah.
okay, so same as before. Right? And I also assume that these were easier than they were in this test. But you know what? If I didn't ask it and and it didn't specify,
I
then
would
it didn't
actually
say.
even say that all these now are kind of like the same level, not harder.
Ah, interesting. Wait, he just said not hard at all now?
These last two ones here were the toughest.
Toughest still. Yeah.
Okay. And which would you say were the easiest?
It continues to be this, but just easier now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So you still feel that these right here are the easiest.
Yeah.
These two, they're still like
Middle. Yeah.
yeah.
Easy. I would actually even say that all these now are kind of like the same level, not harder.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay.
Definitely this improve a lot, I think, with
Yeah.
the size.
Okay. So you're saying the innermost, like, it's not nearly as difficult as it was
No,
before.
yeah.
It's not as easy as these, but it's getting there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
So he said that these are all at the same level now, which is pretty, which you also think like, wow, that's amazing. You know, just you're able to bump this from being hard to being like on the same level as these, you know, just by keep in mind, these are all in, these go up in 16 pixel increments. So, I mean, that's pretty sizable. But that's pretty cool though, right? Isn't it? I mean, that gives you some like actionable stuff, assuming that this is a pattern that you see throughout, which I think I did see, right? But you know, like I said, I gotta wait till I get all the data to confirm. But you know, it's
Awesome.
you know, it's interesting to see that.
All right. So let's do testing.
You can see why I love UX design, like why I love this stuff, you know, and why testing and this step is my favorite step, even though like people are like, I like to design stuff. I'm like, I do too, but man, I really like this kind of part.
Oh, this is way easier. Okay.
So tell me about those.
Everything felt very easy. I would say that even the only ones that I think were harder to reach was just this one last column, but the rest, including this one, is a lot easier now. So
So that's pretty cool, right? So it's been like these have been upgraded to, well, these are still hardest, right? But these have now been upgraded, I guess you could say, in
just
comfortability.
the farthest to the right, I think, is the one where I had to reach it.
Gotcha. So
Yeah.
the ones the farthest were the hardest.
Yeah, but I do feel like this one was a lot easier now.
Gotcha. How'd you feel like this fourth column compared to like maybe the middle column?
So definitely still easiest. This is square here. I think
Gotcha.
it's
So the easiest is still here.
the more. But this one I would compare it to something like the top.
See, oh man, when you get a user like this who, or you get a tester like this who, man, just knows how to like, God, you love it. You love it. Let me see.
The Pro.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. In the innermost.
Good.
Column.
I'm glad I asked
A
that.
lot better, a lot more visibility. I don't think you got to drive the Sport, no, the Sport, the Bolt, but they had icons here that you couldn't really see with the wheel. This is better, so I felt like that with the smaller ones, but with this, it's a lot better with the bigger size.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
So yeah, so he didn't specifically say. Did he specific?
And awesome.
Yeah. So I'm gonna put these on the same level, although it sounds like in general these were tougher than this section here. I'm gonna go by exactly what he said. I'm not going to, like I said, I'm not gonna mess with it. But it is nice for my own purposes that I can downgrade something from, I can have two versions of green, right? Because, that will, but I want to point out, so that was one of the things I talked about. It added a whole new factor, a whole new variable to this whole thing, which the whole time that I was thinking of this project, right? All I was thinking was like, how easy is it able to touch them and reach them, right? And so you would assume it'd be easy. It's easy from here and then gets harder as you go this way, right? But something I didn't even think about was visibility. There were, I think, at least 3 users, and it started with my very first one where he said he could not even see these. And then several more said, you know what? I actually couldn't even see them because of the wheel. And you're like, visibility. It's not just, with your phone, you have perfect visibility. It's sitting right in front of you. When you're in a vehicle, visibility is extremely important because you're trying to keep your eyes on the road. If you have to take them off, you're trying to keep your eyes off the road for as little as possible, right? So visibility is a really huge thing. So it's not just the size of the buttons and stuff, it's also where you place them. And I'll say that as I was going through this testing, I was seeing these patterns emerge. I was thinking about my Tesla, and I'll say that it seems to me that the way they've designed a few things, like it does meet this pattern a little bit. I always wonder, that's always my first question when a product comes out. I'm always asking, what kind of testing did they do? Did they do any testing? Because it's so common for companies not to do testing. I really can't say one way or another, but I'll say Tesla, their screen design follows this pretty well. At least so far, I still have a lot more data to collect and stuff like that. But based on like what I've seen just from these first 3 tests, I'm like, actually they're doing pretty good, So,
Just got one more test.
all right, we're on the last test here.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, if you notice, with the previous tests, with the first 2, I would say, I had trouble with the input, but now the first time that I get it, it comes through. So definitely, this is the easiest one.
How's it going? Hey, Duplay. So pretty much this is a personal project of mine. I'm designing, like what you see in Tesla, I'm designing a vehicle interface. So the first thing I wanted to know, and I wanted to start from scratch. I didn't want to it's like, I wanted to figure out what would be the best practices for this type of thing, right? What would you consider like the best touch zones? What would be the best like button sizes? And so I wanted to start from scratch. So what I did was I created some tests of different button sizes in different areas of the screen to see if I could find some type of pattern, like, well, what button sizes are best, what locations are best, and then what button sizes are best at which locations. So what this is, it's everything else is blurred out for like, to keep my participants anonymous and stuff like that. So that's why it looks so kind of janky. But yeah, this is to test that, to see if any patterns emerge. Can I make sense of this like raw data to come up with some best practices?
yeah, so this is, oh my goodness. Do play more. Oh, thank you so much for following. Very much appreciate. Man, that was super loud. Apologize. Thank you so much for the follow. Yeah, so this is kind of a just like a rough prototype test that I just kind of put together. Just made it really simple to see and make it as raw and simple as possible to see if I could come up with some patterns. Which I've done 5 of these so far. Right now I'm going through the data and I'm synthesizing it, making, trying to like record it all. I can say I've been seeing there's some patterns that are definitely emerging from it. And so what will happen is after I've gone through, I want to go through at least 3 or 4 more people. I will create another design that will probably be similar to this, but it'll kind of combine all the things I've learned from these tests. So it'll be like a revised, upgraded version of this to confirm what I think is true. And so, yeah, this is literally a yeah, so yeah. So for me, it's not so much so the thing for me is that it's not so much where they're tapping, although I have to say that is kind of interesting that some users were like, I would tap from the top and then go like zigzag, right? But I had some that were tapping randomly. That was kind of interesting to see. I was kind of curious to, just let them do what they want, see if there's anything. But in terms of importance, what I'm looking for is more in terms of usability. So it doesn't matter like where they tap, but I want to know, well, how difficult was it to tap that spot? In terms of a couple things, like was it hard to reach? Like if it was difficult to tap, was it because it was hard to reach, or is it because the button was too small? So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for, I guess, say the hot spots. Like, what are the areas that are like in UX? It's like where are the car is stationary. Yeah. Yeah, this is not with testing cognitive load or anything yet. That will happen. Let me think. I'll probably be at that stage probably in the summer. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'm a UX designer. I love this stuff. Like, this is the part that I love. This is just, yeah. And so, yeah, it's, oh my God, I don't know how to say it. I just love this stuff so much. But yeah, that's pretty much, what I'm doing here. I'm trying to figure out, okay, where are because I mean, obviously the places that you can reach easiest, well, that's where you want to put, like, if they're driving on the highway, right? And there's an action that requires their action. Or let's say, for example, they want to change their route, right? I'd want to put it in an area where they can get to very easily, right? And I'd want those buttons to be at a size that they could touch really easily, right? To make it safer, to make it easier, right? So that's pretty much, it's more, it's going to be a very, very interesting process. Subscribe. Thank you. So yeah, thank you so much for subscribing. So no, what this literally is, you can see what these black straps are. I have an external monitor that's roughly the same size as the Tesla screen, and I just strapped it to it. There is nothing through the wheel. And I don't think I'll probably ever be able to do something like that, unfortunately. I don't know. There's always. I was trying to. There's always chances. There's a couple guys I know that are programmers. I was asking them, do you know how I could feed into the screen here? Just put it directly on the screen, which they said there is, and I think they're trying to figure it out for me. But yeah, right now, it's testing like just from the screen. Just all screen. So it's it's an interesting project. It's I mentioned at the beginning of the video, it's based on the because I have a Tesla, I really like it, but obviously a lot of people have trouble with the screen. They're used to buttons and stuff like that, which I understand. But you know, I also think there's could be several possibilities for that reason. One, it could be more difficult. Two, it could be because people are more used to buttons, right? I compare it to when we used to have QWERTY keyboards on phones, right? Obviously, I my favorite one was like a Palm Treo. I had a full keyboard, right? And then we went to touchscreen telephones, right? I haven't done much research on it. I will eventually. But you can imagine there was a learning curve, right? A really big learning curve going from the physical keyboard to the touchscreen. But now look at us. Touchscreen, you know, is fantastic now, right? Yes. Yes. Gestures are, man, dude. Gestures are just the coolest frickin' thing. Yes. Yep. And that will be, yep. All those things will be tested as well. Yeah. Yeah. Primarily, yeah, this is like the very first test of like everything. It's getting a sense for where stuff might go. And like I said, this is very raw data. After this one, assuming the patterns that I get through this are strong enough, I will go straight to another prototype that's similar to this, but it will be based on the patterns that I think I see. Like, for example, it sounds like this is the toughest zone right now, this is the easiest zone, and this is the well, it depends on button size, honestly. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create buttons in random spots, like not just in this grid, but like having some here, and pretty much getting the same feedback, like, you know, tell me about how was that comfortable and stuff. And probably like one at a time type of deal, but pretty much trying to confirm the patterns that I think I'm seeing here and refining them. And once I get that figured out, then it's going to be, then what it will be is I'm going to be talking to users and asking them, you know, it'll be deciding like what kind of features would they want? Like, what do they want? What's most important to them? What do they use on a daily basis? In the beginning of the stream, I talk about like all the survey research data I've done with these users before that. So the next one will be figuring out like what do they want, and then it will be a matter of, okay, so you know, how should they be? And that's where it starts to get really heavy. It'll be like where should those things go, but also like you talked about, what kind of action should be used to access those things, you know? So yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what I'm going for. Yeah. I want to know, yeah, where would it be the easiest to interact with this or that or this? Like, for example, like I'll give you an example, like you know, like maybe setting your climate system, right? At least for me personally, and this depends though. I got to interview my users to find out like how they feel about it, right? Because just going based on what I think is good that's bad design, you know. Designing for myself is not that's not design at all. That's just, you know. But like for me, for example, my climate, I touch it only once. I set it to auto to be a certain temperature, and that's it. I never touch it again, right? So that could be put in a spot where I'm like, yeah, it could be somewhere where it's not like prime location, because I'm only going to mess with it while I'm sitting, you know. But like something I might change off in like the music, right? Well, that's gotta be in prime real estate, because that's something that I might mess with all the time. So, well, since I'm messing with that all the time, it's got to be somewhere very safe to get to, and the actions to operate it got to be really, really, you know, quick and very easy to do, you know? And so, yeah, so it's, yeah, and that's the thing, like when you do this testing, I have no idea what it's gonna, I have assumptions, but I love to challenge, and this couple of tests have already, some of my assumptions have been right. Some of them have been I'm not even going to say slightly wrong. Some have been wrong. And then some have introduced new things that I never even thought about before. So it's, and then And then I have all this data. I can't. This is the stuff I'm really excited for. Like, I'm trying to find out if there's correlations between people's height and arm length and, you know, their distance from the wheel. I'm trying to see, like, okay, so which factors kind of come to the fore most often, you know, like what, you know, so that I can, like, if there's correlations and patterns there, it's like, okay, well then you can kind of, like, I'll put it this way. This is my theory, but we'll see. Like I said, I got to do more testing to find out. But so far, it sounds like, and like I said, I have, these people, this is a tester who is, you categorize them as short. This person's tall, this person's medium, right? You can see that overall the patterns are the same, right? But in varying degrees, I guess you could say, right? The point is that there's patterns, but there's also some inconsistencies, right? What I think, assuming the data does met this out, what you could do is you could, like, have someone get in the vehicle and say, enter in your height, maybe. Like I said, I don't know. I gotta, like, see if there's any correlations. And then you could say, okay, here's my height, and it would change the UI to fit the best setting for your height. So far, from what I see, your height, it could be either your height, your distance from the wheel, or your arm length. I'm trying to, like, figure that out. Changes so far the user's difficulty. Yeah, exactly. And that's what so far, and like I said, this is very early testing. I have like 3 other interviews after this that I need to synthesize this data through. It sounds like a dynamic user interface really is a key to making something like this work for, quote unquote, not everybody. I don't believe in designing for everybody, but quote unquote everybody, right? So it's interesting. I'm having an immense amount of fun. And it's especially more exciting when you start to see correlations and you're like, oh snap, I'm on the right track, so yeah, it's a lot of fun. Oh man, this is the stuff that gets me up in the morning, and I'm, like, excited to jump into it.
I would find the further to the right access.
Let me see. Oh yeah, this is the final
Here,
tab.
You couldn't really see with the wheel. This is better. So I felt like that with the smaller ones, but with this, it's...
Oh, thank you, Duke Play. Yeah, I you know what? I have a YouTube channel by the same name. Always call me Blaze. I didn't intend on starting a YouTube channel, to be honest. I'm self-taught. I don't have a college education. I'm working on that now. But pretty much I'm self-taught. I was trying to find out what is the best way to learn UX without having to go to school. Yeah. And so I figured out, and so it took me a while, but I eventually figured out something that worked for me. And so I made a YouTube video on it. And I got a job. I work for pretty good company. And so far I've been with them for a year and a half, and I'm doing really well. I'm doing pretty well for myself. And so when I saw that, my method actually worked, I made a YouTube video about it. So because that was the thing that made me super upset, is I would watch YouTube videos of other UX designers, and the thing was, they were so vague, like so vague. And I was like, this is not helpful. Like, this does not help me, And I researched boot camps and all kinds of stuff. And I was like, this does not seem right. This seems like a scam, like not a scam, but it seems borderline a scam, And so when I finally figured it out, and I found a way to do it without spending any money, I was like, I'm going to put out a YouTube video because I know there must be other people struggling like me. Yeah, I honestly can't call it a scam because they do give you something, but it's just not, it's not right. It's really not, I don't know. It's messed up to me, but I figured out a way to do it essentially for free. You got to put a little bit of work in there. I made a step-by-step guide too, though. Yeah, good. Yeah. It sounds like, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. And so I made a video about that because I was like, because that's how I've been my whole life. I would love to go to college, but I could never afford it. So I've always like had to teach myself stuff, and that's how I've kind of made my way. And so I was like, there must be other people out there that are just like me, that are like, you know what, I'm willing to put the work in, but I don't know what to do. No one will tell me what to do. So I put the video out there, and I guess it helped a lot of people. Yeah. See, I mean, that's how it goes, right? And so I put the video out there, and it looks like it was helping a lot of people. So I was like, okay, cool. So I'll, and they were asking, well, you know, what about this? What about this? And I said, okay, you know what, let me put out some more videos to like help out, you know, to help out more. And then making videos, of course, like work though, obviously work is busy. So I was like, okay, man, it takes a long time to make videos. The videos are very helpful, but it's like, you know, shooting and that's the thing. I'm very, very persnickety. I do video editing like as a hobby. So I really enjoy that, but it's like finding time to do is really tough sometimes. And so I put out videos when I can. I have like several scripts already written. I just need to like, I also live in a house with like my family. So it's like, there's never a quiet moment. There's very rarely a quiet moment in this house to record anything. But anyway, so like but I also found that like, you know what, streaming, I'm able to answer everyone's questions. I'm able to show stuff more. So that's why I started streaming. But yeah, that's my journey of how I got here. I wasn't even planning on streaming because it's like a personal project, but I was like, I just love this stuff so much. And I was like, I might as well stream it. Why not, you know? I agree. I agree, you know? I absolutely agree that,
A lot
yeah.
better with the vibe.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
Gotcha.
But yeah, that's the most, that's the reason because like I said, I followed so many YouTube channels, and I am not like, I definitely don't want, I'm definitely not trying to compare myself with anybody else. But I also realize a lot of the stuff I see on like YouTube and LinkedIn and Instagram, you know what, they might show, I'll put it this way, they show part of the UX process, but there's a lot that they leave out. There's a lot that they leave out, and I'm like, no, you are leaving out the most important stuff, like this stuff right here. This is what makes you useful to a company, you know? I agree. And I'm the same way. I'm the exact same way. I learn better from like watching somebody else, you know? And yeah, I'm going to continue. I just, I wish I had more time to do it more often. But yeah, I agree too. And that was the thing, is I was like, but there's not many people that are like showing how you actually do it. They're telling you, but they're not showing you how to actually do it. And so I was like, you know what? And I may not even do things perfectly right, you know, but I'm like, it's better than nothing, you know? And so, yeah, it's
Just got one more.
pretty much my goal, because I want to help. Atomic Habits. Let me write it down. Is that a book? Let me see here. It sounds like a book. In fact, I think I've heard of that before. It's a book. Okay, that's what I figured. Okay, I'm gonna save that. It's actually only like $13. I'm always up for reading new stuff. Always. Thank you. I'm gonna add that to my book list. You know, I'll add it. Maybe, hopefully, I have one that's like, what's the word? Audiobook. Thank you. I'm definitely gonna look into that. Yeah, that'd be good too. Because I was diagnosed with ADHD last year. Um, yeah, so I've learned I can have a lot of trouble with scheduling time and creating habits because the little robot in my head will try to like completely throw me off. But yeah, my psychologist has told me like we gotta work on your behavior, like creating new habits, and so I'm like, all right, cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah. One thing at a time. Yeah, I think he said.
I mean, if you notice, with the previous tests, with the first two, I would say, I had trouble with the input, but now the first time that I get it, it comes through. So definitely, this is the easiest one.
Gotcha.
I even find the further to the right accessible now.
Gotcha. So you're so what would so let's start. Which would you say are the easiest ones to touch?
I mean, I still feel like this square here feels very natural.
Yeah. Okay. So that one is still the easiest.
And then I would say pretty much this and this. This two, this section here, it would be the second, and then this one is still pretty accessible.
Okay. Which but yeah, do play. I'm really, oh man, I can't wait to get to like I can't wait to do like further testing with this because it's, oh man, it's so, this stuff. I love this stuff so
And then
much.
this one. So this one first, and then I will say something like this,
Yeah.
and then this,
No.
and then this.
Okay. So let's see. So he said, so I'm actually going to use blue because he didn't say it was difficult. He said they're all pretty accessible. So I'm actually, yeah, I'm going to switch to blue because it may not be easy, but it wasn't hard. And I don't want to put, I'm not putting words into his mouth. Like that's the most important thing. Do not put words in their mouth. What they say is what they say. Again, if you're like, oh, it doesn't completely match up, don't worry. It's about patterns. It's always about patterns. And the patterns of everybody, not just like necessarily one person. So,
Gotcha. Yeah.
cool. So cool. So yeah. That's so we got, and like I said, I might have to go through his test again. But there you go. There's like a comparison of someone who short, tall, and medium. In fact, maybe I can move him to a more meaningful thing. And so this is only 3 people though. This would not be, the amount of people is nice for gathering some patterns, but you keep in mind that, in fact, can I get my fat face out of the way? No, that's the smallest it goes. Let me see. Make sure you can see it. So that's, but we do see some patterns emerging, right? Which is very interesting. So you have the shorter person, right? I said for the shorter person, have 15 dots, you can limit to 5. You limit to 5. Yeah, and that's that's pretty much what the next test is going to be. It's going to be a more refined version of this. And yeah, pretty much. It's yeah, I'll say in terms of responsive, the screen that I have, it's like I said, I would love to be able to feed this directly through the Tesla screen. The screen I have, I got off Amazon for like $120. I'm surprised at how responsive it is, that you don't have to press hard. You can just, quick tap and you're good. But I always have to keep that in mind too, that the screen may not operate as well. Also too, again, like the easiest thing is to get, oh, thank you, Duplay. Yeah, I'll say that that's the other thing too. And that's what always makes it, Yeah, it's basic. It's the technical stuff is always something that you always got to keep in mind that's tricky. Because, like, for example, it's always easy to get people to join you to help you, but getting them to follow through on the test is hard. So I use my phone as a hotspot to the computer. So I drive straight to them and tell them, all you got to do is come out of your house, do this for 10 minutes, and that's it. You go back inside. That's how I get people to follow through. You make it as convenient as possible. But so as you can see, there are some patterns emerging here. So this person who's short, and I think I have one other person that I tested that is short as well. So I'd like to compare their data to his. Actually, 3 people. So I've actually tested 3 people in total who are short. So I got to go through. So I'm curious. So that'll be really, really nice, is to compare this short person's data with the other short person's data, right? And then see if they say the same thing. I mean, that's why I love this stuff so much, right? So we see, are there patterns for short people? Are there patterns for medium people? Are there patterns for tall people? And then you say, okay, is there an overarching pattern for short and medium, tall and, like, that's just, I love it, man. But the interesting thing is just, and again, for the sakes of this test and what we're trying to do, just 3 people alone is not good enough. But we can already see that there are some patterns emerging, right? That these, so green is easiest, yellow is difficult, and red is hardest. Yeah, pretty much. And then of course it gets a little complicated though, because dark green means like really easy, light green means like easy, right? So dark green is better than light green, but then it's like, well, what is light yellow? And it's like does that make it less difficult? Because like on a color spectrum, I don't know. I know what it means, and so that's pretty much light yellow means difficult, but not as difficult as dark yellow. Dark red means difficult. I mean, red means really hard, I guess you could say, and light red is like hard, but not as hard as dark red. It makes sense when you're the one doing it, I guess. But then this is really cool to see that, we see these definite patterns, right? That even for this short person who found this first test, never really found anything. Yeah, that's primarily, I'm trying to stick with the red, the yellow, and the green. This blue one was, what I really loved about this user here is that he's really, and that's primarily what I'm going to do. I'm going to pretty much just stick to green, yellow, and red, because it's not an exact science anyway, especially when there's so many different factors at play, distance from the wheel, height, arm length, right? At the end of the day, I'm mostly looking at the 3 colors. But I really love about this user, he's really good at expressing himself and saying, these were the easiest, these were second easiest. And so I just want to make sure that I'm like, you know what? I just want to mark exactly what he said. It probably won't matter. It's probably I guess you could say it's probably more refined than I need it to be. But you know what? That's not for me to decide. Maybe it'll be important later, and so... Yeah, so I had to throw this blue in here to to add 2 more degrees of easy. But yeah, it's interesting to see that, the pattern is the same. The inside is the hard, was hard. The outside was the hardest. But these 2 rows here seem to be the easiest, And then as we go on, it stays consistent, right? So that's my theory, is that these 2 rows here are prime real estate, right? And so like I said, there's other tests that I've already done them, but I haven't synthesized them. I didn't pull one of those out, but it added a whole nother factor to this that I didn't consider. I was just considering, like reachability. How are things easy in terms of reachability? But also it added invisibility. The other reason why these are difficult is not just because, technically you'd think that these would be easy to reach, which is true. But actually what makes these, which is true but not true, because the wheel is in the way. These can be difficult to reach, but also too, these are not easy to see because of the wheel. And so it's like, that's another thing that you need to consider is visibility. You know, it's not just can people reach stuff, is, well, will their eyes go to that spot? Or do they have to track the screen to find what they're looking for? Because you want them to keep their eyes on the road as long as possible, which likewise means you want their eyes off the road for as little as possible. And so, but yeah, that's something I didn't even think about. But that's what I love about this stuff. It brings in factors I never even considered, and that's what makes your design better. You know, if I just would have designed this assuming what I know is right, I would have missed that completely, you know, but now I won't because I've done this testing. And like I said, it was mentioned in a couple of these tests, but it was 2 other tests I did, same thing was mentioned. So that's when it became real to me. But yeah, it's really, really interesting to see, you know, these patterns. What I'm really excited to see, it seems like with the medium and tall people, when we made these buttons almost 100 pixels, 96 pixels, I believe it is, they pretty much said, wow, everything just got a lot easier, you know? But we'll notice with this short person, that's not true. Well, not necessarily. That may not be true for this, right? But then again, this is just one person. I gotta look at the data for the other 2 short people and see, do they still find it difficult, you know, to reach out here even when they're at their biggest size? If so, then that's something that it's like, okay, well then we got to consider that, you know. But yeah, I'm excited. I can't wait to go through it, and I'm going to do that in my off time. This is not the most exciting stream content. Well, I'm not. I guess I'm not trying to be. I guess I'm not trying to be exciting. I'm trying to be more informative. But it's been really fun to see these patterns emerging. And like I said, that's how you know that you're at least on the right track. You know, when you're setting up your testing, and it means that, you know what, your surveys were great. How you categorize people was great. I mean, when you see patterns emerge, like, yes, you're on the right track. Keep going. Like, keep up that. You got a really good base. Keep moving. If I didn't see any patterns, and at least I'll say I felt like there should be patterns. I agree. I kind of, yeah, I'm a more data analytical person than I am than purely aesthetic. Although the aesthetic is also can be really exciting from a data standpoint as well. But yeah, this is a project I've been wanting to do for a long time. I finally had some downtime for work to get working on it, and this is fantastic. It lets me know that I'm going in the right direction. And if we keep going, you know, if I keep going, like, we're going to start, you know, finding stuff out. So, yeah, this is the stage that I'm in right now, is figuring out what are the ideal touch targets and touch zones. And so, got more testing going on. I got 2 other tall guys that I'm getting with, hopefully this week. And, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that data. Cool. Well, that is where I'm planning on ending the stream. I thought it would be good to show the different 3 types of data, and also helps you kind of see when, you know, what kind of things you look for, you know, to know if you're, at least when you're starting out, that you're moving the right direction, successful, and also, you know, see, you know, this kind of cool stuff here. And yeah, I'll probably, once I get to the point where this stage right here is where there'll be another test similar to this, where I take, yeah, thank you so much, Duplay. I really appreciate it. I'm glad this is enjoyable for you. You know, I'll have to, you know, I usually don't stream this type of stuff because I don't know, I never think it's exciting, but I might as well, you know, I mean, why not? I thought I'd stream it because, I mean, it'll be saved on my Twitch and on my YouTube, so I mean, I might as well, because I think it'd be helpful, you know, for some people to see how other people do it, right? But yeah, once I go through all of the data and I find correlations and I find patterns, then what I do is I create another test, you know, probably something similar to this, but different, that essentially tries to combine all of those data, all those patterns and correlations into a design and to confirm and verify whether that's true or not. Right? So I'll I haven't decided exactly how, like, what stuff I'll do. Well, I gotta wait for all the data to come through first. But like, for example, if I'm assuming that this is probably the easiest place to get stuff, so I'll put buttons. I'll put a button in here and let them tap it, and their response should be, "Oh, that was easy," you know. So it'll be yeah. And I'll say that once I get this figured out, like, oh man, after that point, it's like then you know that everything as long as you follow, set like your rules, and it's a great place to start rules, start from. And so it'll be great, it'll be fun. But cool. But thank you everyone so much for tuning in. Do play. Thank you so much for contributing to the conversation. Really great to talk to somebody who has the same kind of love for this type of stuff. And yeah, I look for, hopefully next time I stream, it'll probably just as random as this. This was kind of random. I didn't announce it or anything. I just did it. But hopefully we can have, more conversations, in the future. I loved your ideas. And I am always open to feedback from whoever. I tell people the number one rule of a good UX designer is you never believe you are the only person that right answers have to come from. You collaborate with other people. And it's in our nature. I'm getting the right answers from these people right here, not me. And so I believe that's true with even like your coworkers. Never believe you're the only person that should have the right answers. You will. Most of the time you will. But collaborate with other people. Trust me, it'll be better for everybody. So I guess that's my soapbox thing, or whatever soapbox is. So cool. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Do play. Thank you so much for following. Very much appreciate it. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Take care.